So just put your chit-chatting on pause because it's time to introduce our first speaker for this afternoon session. So I'm excited to announce our first speaker for this afternoon, Grenadian artist and creative director George McCalman, based in San Francisco and in Grenada. George, like you have some fans, boy. Yeah, now hollering. Hello, just a reminder, this is not Soca Monarch. His first book, illustrated Black History, honoring iconic and unseen, was published in September 2022 to accolades by the New Yorker, Hilton, and NPR, the New York Times, and the San Francisco Chronicle, and won an NAAC Primage Award for outstanding literary work by a debut author in February 2023. That deserves a round of applause. His design studio collaborates with a wide range of cultural clients. His background in editorial world has been the foundation for his storytelling. Any storytellers in here? His decision to cultivate his fine art practice alongside brand work reframed his perspective and synchronized the importance of design. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker for this afternoon, Mr. George McCalman.
Thank you, Madame. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm going to break with format for a little bit. I just ran into a friend, Mia, and I was telling her that I have spoken at conferences all over the world, and I got up this morning and I felt for the first time nervous. Because I'm giving the most important talk I've given in my career right here today. Because this is in front of all of you, and this matters more to me than anything else. It's not awe, it's real. So every time I give a talk, I always thank the participants. There are a lot of other places you could have all been today, and that you all made the decision to be here. And so this is a really powerful collection of people from different walks of life, different places in the diaspora, and different parts of our country. And we are all here for the same singular reason. We are all honoring the potential of who we are, who we have been, and most importantly, where we are going. So thank you. So there are a couple of talks today that have this title, and I need to distinguish myself from the other titles because what tangible and intangible assets means is different depending on who you're talking to. And what I'm talking about is my professional career alongside the things that have inspired me and the things that inspire me most in life. In the order of importance is my family and my country. My name is George McCalman. I'm a fine artist. I'm a graphic designer, a typographer, a professor of graphic design, a brand strategist, an entrepreneur, a commercial illustrator, and a Grenadian. So I started out as a graphic designer. If anyone asks me what I am first, I tell them. And most people don't know what that means. And most people in here don't know what that means. And what it is, very simply, is I put words and images together. I grew up in Brooklyn, the other Caribbean. Right. In East Flatbush, which is the center of the Caribbean universe in Brooklyn. But I was born here. And I know my accent tricks people because I grew up sounding like this. And so I always heard my local country people ask me if I was from away. And I always said, no, right up the road. So when I went to school in Brooklyn, I grew up always being interested in how people spoke and how visuals were presented. Every child is wired in a different and unique way. And for me, I always was putting stories together in my brain. I was a little kid who drew a lot obsessively. I had a grandmother, who I'm going to speak about later in this presentation, who performed and modeled what storytelling is. She is the best storyteller that I know. And she's also the person who showed me what storytelling, the power of storytelling. And so I grew up always interested and intrigued, and always thinking about and processing how images and words fit together. And so when I graduated university, I went to St. John's University in Queens. And when I graduated, I started working at a magazine. And so I became a magazine assistant. And then I became a magazine art director. And then I became a magazine creative director. And eventually I was running my own magazine. And what that experience taught me is it gave me a military precision of training about all aspects of storytelling, from the concept to the words to the images, to how you communicated with the artists and the writers, to the copy editors, to the production people, to the business people, to the strategists, to the marketers, to the printers. I have access to every single aspect of this because of that experience. And so when I decided to open my studio and go to work for myself 12 years ago, I knew the origin of that desire was not corporate America. It was Grenadian agency. So the reason that my studio is called McCalman Co. is I wanted to honor a lot of things at the same time. Language is really important, and the people who I interact with hear my rants all the time about how lazily people can use language sometimes. And when I was originally thinking of my studio, I wanted it to embody the fact that I was not behind my work, I was in front of my work. I have always been the person in any room I have been in who has had my perspective. What that means is I have always brought a Black perspective to everything I have done. And when I tell you I have been, for the first 14, 15 years of my life, the only Black person in a room, it became repetitive, and some people find that amazing. I found that tedious. I never liked it. I didn't feel special because I was the only Black person, because I knew what I was doing was not rocket science. And that the only reason I was the only Black person in that room is that I had lucked out. I wasn't any more extraordinary than any other person. I am no more extraordinary than any other person in this room or any room I've been in. But I also know that I worked within a system, and a system that is dedicated to keeping people who look like us out. And so what I wanted to do, going back to the name for a second, was take the identity, my identity, and place it at the foreground. Anyone who's working with me knows that they're working with a black person. They're not working with a designer. They're working with a black person. And what that means is it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. It means I'm going to be thinking ahead of most of my clients. It means I'm going to be giving perspectives that other people have not considered. It means I am going to have the entire system figured out before we start the process. And I've developed this way because I haven't had the luxury to do anything else. I'm starting at the end. I made a book that came out last year. I developed it for 6 years and worked tirelessly on it. I'm going to tell you everything I did, and it's going to make your head spin. I am the writer, the conceptualist, the artist, the editor, the designer, the organizer, the project manager, the marketer of this entire operation. But I didn't do it alone. There were a lot of other people involved. And I'm not telling you all of this because I need the ego boost. I'm very good at knowing my value. But what that tells you is that I was the leader, the facilitator, the organizer. I was the human resources department. I was my own agent, even though I have an agent. And I'm going to tell you numbers, because that's not often discussed in these kinds of gatherings. I'm a first-time author, but I'm not a first-time writer. I'm a columnist. I'm a columnist for various newspapers. I live in San Francisco. I'm a columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle. It means that I study culture, and I write and I draw about it. I had the very first illustrated column in United States history that started 6 years ago. When I came up with the idea 7, 8 years ago, I decided that I was going to be the center of gravity in the whole thing. Because I had come from publishing, I knew the inner workings of it. So I knew how to position myself in a way that would allow the gatekeepers to know that I knew what they knew. And it reoriented the entire conversation, because no one could pull a fast one on me. And so the advance I got for this book as a first-time author was $200,000 US. And I'm telling you this to illustrate what I did with the money. Most of it I don't have. Most of it went right back out again, because I had to organize, I had to hire fact checkers. This book is ambitious. It takes on 400 years of history through the eyes of 145 black pioneers, including several who are from the Caribbean and specifically Grenada. But what I needed to do was let my publisher know that I was not going to leave anything to them, that I was going to be on top of them, and that I wasn't going to believe anything they were telling me. And so that meant that I had to organize my entire satellite team separate from the internal workings. If you know the system, then you know how to operate in it. If you don't know the system, then you're lost. And so in my case, I decided that all of that money was going to be reinvested. And the only money I kept was in my role, official role, as the designer of the book, and that was $15,000. That is what I kept, because that's what I deserved. Everything else went out into operations, as it should, and that's what allowed me to finish the book on a high note and have the exact book that I conceptualized. I'm also an exhibition designer, which means I design three-dimensional spaces also. It's adjacent to being an architect. It's adjacent to being an interior designer. It means you are thinking about the considerations of everything that everyone else is going to be staring at. That my role is to inhabit your role as an audience. What kind of visual experience do you want to have, do you need to have, to allow people who are coming into a space to maximize the foundation of the knowledge that they're getting? This was an exhibition design that I completed while I was here in Grenada the last time. I work remotely. I can work anywhere in the world. And because I work for myself, I can do what I want. And I've decided that I don't want to work in an office. And so the people I work with live and work all over the world. So this exhibition, the artist, his name is Mike Henderson. He's a black artist who is having one of his first museum shows in California, Northern California, where I live. One of the things that everyone here should know is that as black people, we are often kept out of specific pieces of a process. And while you think that lots of artists who have exhibitions, artists whose work shows up in gallery and museums, I am one of the only black exhibition designers in the United States. And it's not a big thing, but it's also the biggest thing. Because I'm here representing the perspective of another black artist. I'm thinking about his work from the inside. There's no one white who will be able to do that. You can intellectualize feeling, but you can't fake the feeling. And if you don't know, then you don't know. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to be able to walk through his space, to create the flow of information, it was my idea to place his handwriting as the display typography. And I remember getting on the phone with him. And Mike Henderson is 89. He's a titan. And he got on the phone and he said, "I'm so happy you're here." Because Mike is used to being handled by white people. And it was just a nice, refreshing bath for him to be working with me. And it was a refreshing bath for me to be working with him. And I said, "Mike, I'm not leaving you this entire process." And he said, "Thank God." I'm also an interior designer. So a part of this same show that you have been seeing was a place of rest, because the work itself can be triggering. It's about social injustice. It's about how black people have been treated by the police in America. It's a very searing, it's a very intense show. And so we knew that we needed to have a place of rest. And so my team and I were tasked with designing what that room was. And they thought we were just gonna place some orders at IKEA and have furniture show up. Instead, we designed every piece of furniture from scratch. These are all custom pieces. And so we worked with fabricators in California, in Turkey, and in France. And we did it all in 2 months. What that also means is that I am a producer. I'm a producer of my own work. I keep tabs on everything I do, and it's all stored up here. But I also work with a team. I started out, it was just me. Now my studio hires 10 people. And we all work as an organism, as a unit. And we also know we're all representing the entire ecosystem of everything we do. We don't need anyone in the middle of anything that we do. So I designed a book a few years ago that was a really seminal experience for me. And it's the same model of the same sort of thing that I'm going to keep repeating in this presentation. And it is about agency. It is about not asking for anyone's permission to do what it is your dreams are telling you to do. The word agency, I use it a lot in my own world. I've done a lot of things that Black people don't get to do. And I have never wondered at any point about what anyone thinks of my audacity. I have always been centered in my own belief in myself. So, in July of 2020, Bryant Terry, who is a culinary figure based in Oakland, contacted me and said, "I've been wanting to work with you for a lot of years." This was all in the middle of lockdown, George Floyd, the entire world is roiling. And he said, "I want to do a book that takes the entire history of the Black culinary diasporic experience. And I can't think of anyone else but you to set this up and do it completely from a Black perspective." And I said, "Great, let's get to work." We're creating an entirely Black team that is going to work completely outside of the publishing structure. He laughed. He said, "They're not going to go for that." I said, "They don't have a choice. They need us. We don't need them." And so that's what we did. So the collection of words and images, it is allowing for the economy and personality of typography. Type is not just type. Type is our visual language of the world. I teach graphic design, and I tell all of my students that they have an incredible responsibility. When you are the shepherding of information, that's a pretty powerful thing to take seriously and to represent. And so when you're thinking about it from that perspective, it's different. Because you're thinking about not just what you like, but you're thinking about what your client likes, but most importantly, you're thinking about what it needs, not just what you like. So I'm often the artist of the work that I'm designing. And this was for the US Census. What they wanted was a series of artists to create an incentive for people of color to add their names to the census. Not surprisingly, we don't trust governments. Can't imagine why. And in the process of being one of the artists, it was clear that they also didn't have someone to put together the entire public installation. These installations were all over DC, they were all over San Francisco, they were all over Chicago, they were all over Los Angeles. That's my art there. And I was one of 10 artists, and as I was working on it, I thought a lot about the economy of all of the things that are being discussed. Copyright. Not just who does the work, but who owns the work. That basically is what we're talking about. And if you don't own your work, it's pointless. One of the things that language has provided is evolution. A word that is used commonly that I personally dislike is creative. But I see the power of why it has evolved. I don't describe myself as a creative because I'm not really a fan of verbs being translated to nouns. But that's just me. That's my mother in me. But what the word artist being transcribed into a creative does is it economizes the word. It allows us to talk about art as a business, and that is more important than whether you like the word or not. I was here yesterday as Prime Minister Mitchell was speaking about the contract, and he didn't use this word, but I'm paraphrasing, the contract between all of you and Grenada. We're all recovering from a lot of years of the populace being made to feel like they have no agency. We're all recovering, and we are reversing that trend right now. As Caribbean people, we have to work together. We don't have a choice, because otherwise the choice is made for us, and we all know what that is: colonialism. There are always white people looking to own your work. And I'm not saying this to fearmonger, I'm saying it because it's the truth. And if you are not looking at the back end of what you are producing as a business, then someone else will. This is one of the books that I worked on that is coming out later this year. I do a lot of book design, but for a very specific reason. There is a rise in publishing since 2020 about the Black perspective. Museums are suddenly wild to show Black art. Publishers are suddenly writing stories about Black creatives. That's the last time I'm ever going to use that word that way. And there are a lot more books being published, fashion labels, fashion designers. It's all poppin'. But behind the scenes, it's the same old, pardon my French, shit. Nothing has changed behind the scenes. And so anytime I'm working with a larger system, I create a separate satellite system that allows us to move through the system while retaining our sanity, our clarity, our grace, and our focus. So this is a book about Black women in the food and beverage space. We're pretty casual about books like this, but a book like this didn't exist before Clancy made it. And so I have become the steward of a lot of other people's visions, helping them to cross the finish line with their enthusiasm intact. So I am the designer, the art director, often the project manager, and the person in meetings who's willing to say the uncomfortable thing to let the folks on the inside know I'm not playing around. I work with a lot of photographers. And even though this is the first session, this is less a critique and more of a fact. Photography in this conference this year is not represented enough because it's a really powerful form. It's a really powerful form of our language. And one of the themes that keeps coming up in a few of the talks I've seen today is that if we don't grab the reins of our own stories, then someone else will. Or worse, no one will. And then it just disappears. And so we are in a country that is rich, whether you think about it, know it, or not. We are rich in resources, tangible and intangible. We are an agricultural country that has forgotten that it's an agricultural country. We are a creative country that takes it for granted that we are the most expressive people and the most creative people on the planet. Yes, I'm talking about black people. So I spend a lot of time putting together words and images. I've designed every single thing you have seen in this presentation. Most of the people who are around me, my family, my friends, don't even know a sliver of what I do because I'm always working on something. And even though, whether I'm showing it or not, there are 17 things behind the scenes that I'm working to bring to life. So this is a book, the cover of which was just released today. That's why I'm including this. This is a book. I've designed a lot of things. I've designed a lot of cookbooks. I've designed a lot of books, period. And this is one of the best things I've ever designed. It is a woman by the name of Yewande Komolafe. She is Nigerian. She's a columnist for the New York Times, and she also believes in the power of ecology and economy. She works on food from the rooter to the tutor. And what that means is that nobody else is claiming her stories, her recipes, her perspective. And so we got along like fish in water. What this book expresses is perspective. And we talked a lot about assets, intangible and tangible. The things that you can see and grab onto as a resource, and the things that you can't see that are more important. I'm not a wealthy person, but a lot of money moves through my studio. And I know what's mine, and I know what is operational, and I don't mix the two. And that hard line keeps the economy rolling, because it's not a short-term plan, it's a long-term one. So last year, after working on my own in terms of being the boss, I brought on a business partner. And so McCallum & Co. is now owned by 2 black people. And when people see the both of us walking in, they get scared. And I love it. Not because it's intimidating or because it needs to cause any consternation, but because they're not used to it. Miriam and I put together, we form 50 years of experience. And so no one can tell us any aspect of the front or back end of anything that we do. Within our salon, our studio, we have everything from the front end, marketing, comms, production, video, photography, supply chain, all the way to the end. So the origin point of my synthesis of intangible and tangible assets is my grandmother. My grandmother is the reason that I am the storyteller that I am today. She's the reason I am the confident person that I am today. She did not go to formal education, and she's one of the smartest people that I know. And she produced a family of agents people who want to do for themselves, people who don't talk about what we're doing because we're just out doing it. I don't like to talk about what I'm doing because I find it boring. Not because it's boring to me, but because it would take a long time to tell you all the things I'm working on. And what I learned from my grandmother is that you have to have your center of gravity in yourself if you are going to do anything. This is a story that the New York Times published last fall. It is a story about my grandmother's love of reading. I am a voracious reader because of my grandmother. My family is a family of readers. What I learned from my family is that you have to know what makes you happy. You cannot look for that from outside sources. You cannot find that through outside validation. I spend a lot of time telling people, when someone asks me something that I don't know, my first response is, I don't know. I don't pretend to know things that I don't. I will stop a meeting and say, I don't understand what this part of the conversation is. I make myself professionally vulnerable every single day. And it keeps me flowing, it keeps it loose, it allows me to honor my limitations as a human being, as a part of the conversation of commerce. We can talk about the metrics of the business of art, but at the end of the day, it's the difference between knowing that human beings are powering it versus numbers telling you what you need to be paying attention to. So the last thing I have to tell you is the cosmic symmetry of me speaking at this point, on this day, to all of you here. My mother passed away 2 years ago today, at this time. And I woke up this morning feeling more alive, more grateful, more honored to be here with you than I could have possibly imagined. Some of my family is here to witness, the people who have my amazing, amazing, amazing family. One of the things I learned from my mother was organization. My mother was a precise person. She kept everything in order, often for the family. She was a thinker and a doer. And one of the lessons and the legacy of my mother, she passed away of an excruciating disease, pancreatic terminal cancer. And I watched her die in front of me. And I held her as she died. And that was a profound experience that I will spend the rest of my life honoring and understanding. And one of the things I'm the most grateful for is that one of the last things my mother said to me before she died is that she wanted me to live. And so it is the thing that she is speaking to me and that I am saying to you. Grenada needs to live. So live. Thank you. Thank you.
George. George was so good, I wanted to invite him on a panel discussion. But then I counted the chairs. I said we might have a problem, right? Thank you, George. Oh, somebody cried.
Grenada is strong.
So-
Parents.
Somebody cried, right? Grenada needs to live. What a wonderful way to end your presentation. Thank you so much, sir. At this time, I want to invite my colleague, theater practitioner, Abina Vincent. She is a teacher at the St. Joseph's Convent, Grenville. She will lead this panel discussion coming right up, and she will introduce our panelists for this session. Abina, there she is. The panel discussion is entitled Enhancing and Packaging Our Tangible and Intangible Cultural Assets.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
And thank you, Mr. McCalman. I believe that Grenada truly deserves to live, and we really need to live. Thank you. So this afternoon, we are going to engage three speakers, three giants. Mr. Francis Urias Peters. Also known as Uncle Yu, and Mr. Christy Riggs, Mr. Christopher de Riggs, also known as Daddy Chris, as Neela just said. And we have another giant, Mr. Angus Martin, soon to be doctor. Let's put that title. Okay. I'm going to say a little bit about Mr. Angus Martin. Mr. Angus Martin, he is a historian, an archivist, a museum curator, specializing in Grenada's history and culture in its research and interpretative spaces. He has worked in many prominent roles, such as director of SABA Archaeological Center, SABA Dutch Caribbean Director, curator of the Grenada National Museum. Mr. Martin also is an author and co-author of several books and articles. Some include A to Z of Grenada Heritage 2022, that was published then, and I believe that should be a staple in every school. Island Caribs and French settlers in Grenada. He also co-authored with Joseph Apala and Dr. Cynthia Smith, writing the book, The 10-Main Nation of Carriacou, the Sierra Leone Lost Family in the Caribbean. He co-edited with Dr. Nicole Philip Dow, Perspectives on Grenada Revolution. There are lots of work that Mr. Angus Martin has done throughout the years, especially extensive research on ICH, Intangible Cultural Heritage. So currently, he's completing his PhD in Heritage Management in the Faculty of Archaeology in Leiden University in the Netherlands. Welcome, Mr. Angus Martin. Yeah. Also, I'd like to introduce Mr. Christopher de Riggs, also known as Chris de Riggs. He is the artistic director of Heritage Theatre Company. He has written in excess of 25 plays. I think he's being modest. There's a whole lot of plays he wrote, and one of them is Pan in My Blood. He also did a political comedy drama, The Candidates. He did a few HIV and AIDS edu dramas, such as When Lightning Strikes, Choices. He did environmental plays, such as Bayside Story, and many other. There's another play that's soon to be staged, that is Fire to Dance. We look forward to dancing in that fire, or having that fire to dance. I don't know the interpretation behind it. Today he has two hats. He sits with two hats. He is an economist by profession, and he's also a theater artist. He has been on many boards, and today he's currently the chairman of the board of Grenada Cultural Foundation. Welcome, Mr. Christopher Derricks. And finally, Uncle Yuyu. He is up, and Auntie Anne, good afternoon. He is a playwright, a theater director, storyteller, an educator, and I could be biased, he's my friend. Sorry? Orlando? There's a call for Orlando. Okay. He celebrates 40 years as a theater practitioner. Could you imagine that? He directed and produced more than 13 major plays, and which include Redemption Time, The Junction Box, What's Your Verdict? Oh gosh, how I could forget that? Burial of Miss Faitlin. Well, you know, I'm working with what they give me in the bio, and I say these people and I'm so modest. They take off a whole broadside of their bio. But anyway, the burial of Miss Faitlin. He is the founder of the Family Theater Company and co-founder of Labukan Creative Center. He's a recipient of many awards, and I would only list two because there's so many of them. He was awarded Grenada's Culture Ambassador in 2012, and he was winner of the Pan American Health Organization Media Awards in several categories, 1999, 2000, 2007. Welcome, Mr. Francis Uriah. And don't get jealous, Mr. Chrissy Riggs. You're my friend too, and you too, Mr. Martin. So this afternoon, our topic is enhancing and packaging our tangible and intangible cultural assets. You know what? Let me go and sit down, eh? I find a high up.
All right. So, okay. Permission to refer to my notes. I say that because I remember many years ago, the story was told, I'm a storyteller, of this young man who had to go to preach for the very, very first time. And he looked at the audience and he asked the audience, does anyone know what I have to preach about today? And they said, no. And he said, well, if you all don't know, then it does not make sense telling you all. He went home. Second Sunday, he came back and asked the same question. Does anybody know what I have to preach about today? He says, yes. He said, well, if you know, then it doesn't make sense preaching because you know already. The third Sunday, he came back and the audience decided this time he would not catch us. We are going to do for him, local Grenadian parlance. And he asked again, does anybody know what I have to preach about today? One side said yes, the other side said no. He said, okay, well, the side that knows, you tell the side that don't know. The thing is, he was not properly prepared. I was a little bit nervous, maybe as myself here right now. So I'm asked to speak about the intangible cultural assets and the measures that are required to educate Grenadians about their value. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick directly 100% to the topic. But when we speak about the intangible cultural assets, I think of the oral traditions like storytelling, the myths or folklore, or some people call it folk life, the performing arts in whatever form, whether it's music, dance, drama, local knowledge, we talk about traditional skills, rituals, social practices, traditional craftsmanship. And what I find here is that intangible cultural asset, it gives us an identity and connects us to the past, to the present, and it goes into the future. I'm a child of the 50s and 60s. And what I know growing up in a village of Marquis many years ago was that the essence of the intangible culture, it gave us that cohesion and help us to feel better, a better part of our society. That cohesion is so desperately needed now. Yeah. So I'm going to just use an example here to show indeed the importance of the folklore and the folk songs that kept us together. Because during the 50s, 60s, or even before that, there was a gentleman called Harry Belafonte who passed away not too long ago. And his songs brought that cohesion to the American and Caribbean society. At a time when the world was not as happy as maybe we are right now, I'm not too sure if that's correct, but it brought joy to a people's soul. And just to see if you can follow me at this point in time, we're going to do a little call and response. When our foreparents on the estate, or when they have to move a house, they did a lot of call and response. But we're going to just to honor Harry Belafonte, see if you can get this right. And whatever I sing at the beginning, you are going to repeat after me. Bessie? Day. Let me hear you.
Day.
Me say day, oh.
Me say day, oh.
Not bad. Daylight come and me want go home.
Daylight come and me want go home.
I say day.
Say day.
Me say day, 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 oh. Let me hear you. Say day.
Me say day, me say day, me say day.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Daylight come and me
Want go home.
I say I work all night and I drink a rum, sing.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Stack banana till the morning come.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Say day oh, day oh.
Come and me want go home.
Say day oh, day oh.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Say come Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Say come Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana.
Daylight come and me want go home.
If 6 and 7 and 8 and bunch.
Daylight come and me want go home.
I say lift 6 and 7 and 8 and bunch.
Daylight come and me want go home.
A beautiful bunch of ripe banana.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Say highty-tighty, the tarantula.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Say day oh, day oh.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Say day oh, day oh.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Say day, me say day, sing with me. Me say day, me say day, me say day, me say day. And you sing.
Daylight come and me want go home.
So it's a perfect example of how the intangible assets work, bringing the people together, singing in one voice. As I say, our foreparents, as Caribbean people, two things that the master could not have stopped was us singing and us dancing. And that is why song and dance is still one of the most powerful expressions of our Caribbean people. Again, coming back to the folk music, one song as Island in the Sun that was sung by Harry Belafonte. Long before many of the Caribbean territories received their political independence from Great Britain, this song, Island in the Sun, was heralded as the informal anthem of the Caribbean. Because everybody sang the song. We all as Caribbean islands, we had beautiful spots. Now, as a young boy growing up in the 1960s, my father was a storyteller, and he told us stories. Because storytelling is part of that intangible cultural assets. One of the stories I love most of all is a book. It's a story called La Diablesse and the Baby, written by our own Ricardo Keynes Douglas. And we ask about how do we present a perfect example of a presentation. Here, every person who have a child or grandchild should at least get one of these books. It tells the story of my favorite mythical character, the La Diablesse. I wouldn't go into it right now. But as I say here, my father was a storyteller, and he told us stories over and over again. Some were Nancy stories, and some were stories that held a moral value. And there's one story which I would like to share with you where he spoke about the beggar and the baker. I always tell the story over and over again. And he said, once upon a time in the village there lived a beggar and a baker. And every afternoon the beggar will pass by the bakery and he will beg for bread. Upon receiving the bread, the beggar will say, "Thank you, Mr. Baker Man, but remember, if you do good for yourself, but if you do bad for yourself." And one afternoon, after receiving the bread, instead of the normal dry bread that he received a nice, big, juicy sandwich. It was not his birthday. He was surprised, but the baker said, "Listen, this is made specially for you." So on his way home, that's the beggar, he met the baker's two sons who came from hunting. And the young men were hungry unto death. And they saw the beggar and they asked, "Did our father give you any bread today?" And the beggar says, "Yes, quite naturally." And they said, "Can you give us the bread because we are hungry, and you can come back later on and we'll give you 2 bread instead of 1. And quite naturally he gave them the sandwich, and the boys devoured the bread, went home, and soon they started to feel an excruciating pain in their stomach. And the father got angry because he said, "Every single day I said to you, before you go to hunt, make sure that you eat something." And it says, we did eat something. What did you eat? We ate the sandwich that you gave to the beggar. And as the boy lay, froth emitting from their mouths, and they were screaming as a woman in travail about to give birth, and this there died right before his very eyes, because what he had done, in order to get rid of the beggar, he had poisoned the sandwich. And he remembered the words of the beggar: "If you do good for yourself. And if you do bad for yourself." The intangible cultural assets, to me, as storytelling, needs to be introduced to the school at a very young age, just to teach values. It is so that important. In 1967, I was rooted out from my family in St. George's and went to live with an old aunt in Marquis. I thought it was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Auntie baby. But looking back, in retrospect, I realized here that it was a blessing in disguise, because what's up in St. Andrews, that I was exposed to the rhythms and the chants of the traditional masqueraders, of the shortney and the jab. I attended prayer meetings. In fact, my wife Anne, her grandmother, was one of the champion prayer leaders in our community. Maybe she prayed, Anne, for us to come together someday. The praise came true. And the prayer meetings, which honored our ancestors, and I learned my family roots and the important historical events such as the Federal Rebellion, 1795, Chris?
795.
All right. The 1951 island-wide strike by the estate workers led by Eric Matthew Gary, known as Sky Red. Hurricane Janet in 1955, where I also lost my grandfather, because the intangible cultural asset speaks of memory and of history. And as a student of the St. Giles Anglican School in Mount Carmel, that's where I went to school in St. Andrew, I had the good fortune of having one man called Mr. Crofton Maguire from River Sally. God bless his soul, he died many years ago. Composed some of the most beautiful folk songs that I ever heard. We're not celebrating him, that needs to be celebrated. But he came every Friday and taught us folk songs. And the Friday when Mr. Maguire couldn't come, I felt as though all was lost. My life was ended. I experienced what is called Meet the People Tour, for those of you who were not born in the 60s. When the premier, then Eric Matthew Gary, went to all different villages, and the dancers and singers and people who did drama, we came together and we celebrated. That was the first time I ever performed on a stage, and we sang a song called Bamoya Tibo, De Tibo, Tua Tibo, Dudu. That's a French Creole. Give me 1 little kiss, 2 little kiss, 3 little kiss, darling. I think it was these formative experiences that molded me and gave me an appreciation for folklore or for folk life, which is now referred to as intangible cultural assets. Now, I have a very close brother. His name is Philip Peters, and he once said to me that when a people turn their back on their traditional values, it's the sure formula for chaos and decadence. When we turn our backs on our traditional values, It's a formula for chaos and decadence. And I'm just saying that to try to link to show how the arts can save us as a people if we get back to our traditional values, back to the intangible cultural assets. And the reason why I say that is that I did a little research and I realized here that New York City, I think, have a population of approximately 8.5 million. In 2022, there was 433 murders in New York City from that population. England, with a population of approximately 57 million, had 698 murders. The entire English-speaking Caribbean, we have a population of approximately 6 million people. And in 2022, we had approximately 2,500 murders in the entire English-speaking Caribbean. Have we lost that traditional value? This is one of the reasons why we are experiencing such crime throughout the entire speaking Caribbean. We boast in Grenada that we are one of the safest places. Quote unquote, yes, but when you examine it, is that factual? Because as we tend to wave that flag of safety, the reality is that 60% of all the crimes done for each assizes, they are rape and incest. So how safe are we indeed? I'm saying here that we need to start using our intangible cultural assets to address these issues. We have done it at La Boucan, because 30 years ago there was a play called What's Your Verdict? And of course, remember the performing arts is part of our cultural assets, where incest was not a crime in this island. And we were approached as a theater company to pressure the government of the day to get laws that will criminalize incest. And of course, we did that play, and eventually, 3 months after that, incest became a crime. Unfortunately, the problem persists. But what I'm saying here is that we can use the performing arts to address issues, and not only as education, not only as entertainment, but also as a tourism product. I know I only have 10 minutes, so I will not go much longer, but yes.
I was just...
But just to show how that intangible cultural asset worked with our tourism product, there was an Australian lawyer who came to Grenada when we last did a play in 2016. And he wrote an article which I'd just like to read to you, just to confirm how important our intangible cultural asset is and the value it adds to our tourism product. And he says, my wife and I are Australians visiting the beautiful Grenada this week as part of our 4 weeks of travel amongst the Windward Islands. He says, the highlight of our time here has been a performance by local actors of a remarkable play called What's Your Verdict? The play presents so convincing a story that I practically believed that the actors on stage, they were actual lawyers. He says, Mr. Peters has spiced the play with fascinating characters, some quite hilarious, and so many unexpected twists and turns that the audience is sometimes laughing and sometimes crying. He says, I hope eventually that there will be very few Grenadians who will not say that they have not seen this production. In closing, let me just share with you.
Mr. Peters,
yes, ma'am.
We don't have much time.
All right.
We have to hear the other panelists.
So I'm going to close at this point in time. She's running me for the stage here.
I'm sorry.
But I'm going to share the story another time with you guys. So thanks very much for listening. I hope the questions are going to come. Thank you.
You see how we theater people like to talk, we don't talk, because we are real stories. Thank you very much for our oral traditions and sharing how cohesive it makes our people and our island become when we touch on our intangible cultural heritage based on the expressions that we use in our songs and the way that we speak and so on. Thank you very much. Now we're going to introduce Mr. Angus Martin, and he, as I said, have done a lot of extensive work on tangible and intangible cultural heritage, and I would like to welcome him so that he can speak more about some of our most important intangible cultural assets. I'd have to say.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I'm happy to be here with this audience. I would like to start off with a quote. I have no idea who was the person that said it, but it wasn't somebody's dissertation. It was a Grenadian. Our culture is who we are, how we eat, how we speak, how we think. So we got to preserve that, you know? So it's important for us to keep our identity of who we are, to preserve and maintain our rich cultural traditions. We are unique. There is no one else in the world like us. Thank God. Just kidding. And we have to maintain, we have to keep our uniqueness, and you know, we do that through our culture. Though I was charged to speak about Grenada's most important tangible cultural assets and their significance, I thought that speaking more broadly about the state of our tangible heritage and my passion for that heritage would be more pertinent to this audience.
Mr.
And you can
Martin?
always find a listing of many of these books and articles, though they might not be accessible.
Mr. Martin, you know you can sit down because we haven't.
No, I like here. I'm good.
You good?
I'm good.
No
I'm
problem.
good. Thanks.
All right. I agree.
Go ahead.
It's the professor in me,
No
the
problem.
lecturer. Yeah.
Do-
Though I thought that speaking more broadly about the state of our tangible heritage would be more pertinent to this audience, and you can always find a listing of many of these in books and articles, though they might not be as accessible as they should be, and the information about them debatable. Our cultural landscape reflects who we were, who we are, and who we have been. It is like a vessel that conveys our histories, endeavors, artifacts, stories, mythologies, monuments, and memories, the material culture of human activity across mythic journeys and epochs. Thus, the Grenada islandscape is permeated with the representations and memory traces of our habitation, often obscured like a palimpsest, written and rewritten birth after birth, decade after decade, death after death, generation after generation, and century after century. It is retained, but often only partially or even surreptitiously, centuries of human habitations and interactions that are discernible yet not regularly or readily accessible unless you dig deep to uncover the historical and cultural layers of its entangled past embedded deep within our creolizing landscape. Sometimes traces like indigenous petroglyphs, encrusted ceramic sherds, or even folklore, when found, have unreadable meanings, further complicating our ability to understand our entangled cultural landscape. Other times, traces present multiple possible origins or entanglements, thus making connections to specific authors difficult, sometimes dubious. However, each piece of it or trace uncovered, identified and deciphered, adds to the story, the human story of this island. Hence the need for exploration and study, as who we are is a direct reflection of the knowledge we have of our histories and geographies, what we learn through the interpretation of our landscape, and what the landscape teaches us about the multiple journeys we have experienced to arrive where we are today. The Grenada cultural landscape is littered with the memories and traces of thousands of beings who have trodden across this small island, making them their home for generations, for lifetimes, for centuries. In their journeys, they have left tangible memories of artifacts, monuments, buildings, plants, broken sherds, little pieces of themselves that today accent the cultural landscape, but also tell their stories, our stories. These are left in the landscape for us to explore, decipher, understand, celebrate, and to navigate our cultural lives and for generations to come. The cultural heritage is our patrimony, the palimpsest from the ancestors, paged like an original document where each generation writes and rewrites the stories that matter to them, that matter to us, and are essential in figuring out who we are, who we were, and who we want to become. This cultural palimpsest needs to be recorded and shared with our children and grandchildren to make sure they will have a valued inheritance, and a cultural confidence would allow them to celebrate our past journeys and go boldly into the future with the knowledge, strength, and guidance of all those who have come before. Heritage has always mattered and will continue to be essential to our society and its evolution and its revolution. Grenada's cultural heritage, identifiable in diverse and multiple attributes of our lived experiences across this cultural palimpsest, across our island palimpsest, is an integral part of our story and culture. This cultural heritage, our cultural capital, is often subdivided into two main categories, tangible and intangible heritage, but the separation is only meant to allow easy classification and inventorying, as both occur together as we create lives, as we build societies, as we play, as we work, and as we pass on to the next generations. The intangible heritage includes oral traditions, folklore, songs, dances, language, knowledge, and celebrations we experience in the moment, in the memories across the generations that my friend Urias just talked about. But our tangible heritage, that which we can see, store, and hold, includes the built heritage illustrated in our historical architecture. Churches and public buildings, many crafted by enslaved hands, beginning with Fort George, that 17th and early 18th century edifice that stands guard over the city it built. Our few monuments that seem to tell confused stories of where we have been, like at Leapers Hill, Sotares, that struggles to tell the story of ethnic cleansing. Landscapes that incorporate our cultural and natural spaces, that include Granitang Lake, Lake Entwine, Livera Pond, our spices, particularly nutmegs and cinnamon, rivers like Grand Bras and St. John's River, waterfalls like Marquis and Annandale, forests like the Granitang Forest Reserve, that have been altered all too quickly in our attempts to survive, and historical and archaeological sites that parade more as dump sites than interpretations of our journeys, as well as movable heritage such as works of art, books, and historical monuments. Our documentary history that begins with Amerindian petroglyphs at Duquesne, St. Mark, and Montreat, St. Patrick. Despite our small size, Grenada, with its 1,600 plus years of human occupation, of human creation, has an array of tangible heritage, many of which are essential in creating our sense of place, our sense of belonging, our islandness, and our Grenadianness. Unfortunately, we have not been judicious in safeguarding much of this tangible heritage, as it constantly changes and oftentimes disappears before our very eyes when we disown what we take for granted. This tangible heritage that accents our island spaces include our colonial buildings that have defined us, to us and the world, but remain controversial that we have allowed many to disappear, still trying to decide if they should matter to us. Our landscapes, both what we term natural and cultural, that are constantly changing as we fail to record these changes, yet we continue to define what we are left with as pristine and pure. Our artifacts that have been handed down for generations, yet show up for sale on eBay or stashed away in private collections, lost to Grenadians forever. Our archival materials that are housed in foreign museums and archives, not in Grenada, because we have chosen not to prioritize the safeguarding of our history and culture. And our works of art, those bold canvases that we see only fleetingly as they're sold into private collections because we don't have a national art gallery where Grenadians can go to appreciate the creations of their creatives, who are interpreting our changing landscape, our contested histories, and our constantly evolving culture. This conference and its discussions of our tangible heritage, of its significance, is timely, that we still have an opportunity to recognize their value to us and future generations. We are here to plot a new course of action that will determine our future, our legacy, the patrimony that we will pass on to our children, the tangible heritage that will define us less and less if we continue to disregard it. Let us not be remembered as Hurricane Ivan in its destruction, laying waste to almost 2 centuries of creative expression, but allow the works of painters like Canute Calise and John Benjamin that so beautifully captured our island's identities to be seen and to inspire a new generation of creatives. Safeguard the buildings of the past that might see the unknown hands of ancestors written upon bricks stacked with their pain, but built solidly as a letter from them to the future. To us, protect our diverse landscapes, both cultural and natural, that our creatives will remember no matter where they may journey and always return because it reminds them of home. collect our artifacts and display them at our museums and cultural spaces, that we might bear witness to the journeys that have brought us all here in this place that define us as creatives, revolutionaries, and Grenadians, first and second generations who take inspiration from the place generations have created as ours. I stand here today inspired by what I have seen and heard. It has unleashed in me a renewed passion to work towards the safeguarding of our tangible heritage, that it can enrich our lives and that of our creatives who desire to reimagine the island anew. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Martin. And thank you for telling us in poetry, because it really sounds like a prose or a literary work. And he said that there are no difference between the tangible and the intangible because they all work together. Now we are going to ask Mr. Christopher Derricks, how can this intangible cultural asset of ours be monetized? Since you're an economist and you're also a creative, so probably you can give us some ideas as to how we can add some dollars
Thank you.
to those assets. You're welcome.
Madam Moderator, I didn't bring my guitar.
Is there? You can borrow mine.
I was expecting somebody to say that. Brothers and sisters in the creative ecosystem, my heart feels strangely warmed being here today for this historic event. I've been waiting all my life for an event like this. Those of us who have labored, as I tend to say, in the vineyard of the creative sector, in a situation where there was no clearly defined cultural policy, where creatives were regarded as weirdos, and our art was treated as an occasional pursuit. Today, we feel validated that a new time has come, a new season of recognition. We are speaking about enhancing our cultural assets, our creative assets. And we speak about the intangibles as expressed by my colleague, Iras. And the tangibles, as expressed by Angus, I want to hit this thing from a slightly different angle. There are giants in our community who have lived in different eras in Grenadian civilization, who have left traces. And these traces constitute a legacy, and they constitute heritage. The question is, what are we doing about that? How are we using their example, their efforts, their creativity to inspire us and to bring value to the current generation? In the year 1795, the 3rd of March to be exact, a man called Julien Fedon, a French mulatto planter, led a rebellion of 14,000 enslaved Africans against the British colonial masters. And for the period of about a year, Grenada was in the hands of a rebel leader. He did not succeed in capturing the capital. But 7,000 enslaved Africans died in the process. There's a legacy there. If you go to St. John's in the area called Brothers, there's a building there which is occupied by a school, St. John's Christian Secondary School. It used to be a Buchan, and that was transformed to become a school, a secondary school. It was part of the Revolution Hall estate. Fedon's troops encamped in that area. There's a legacy there, and there's an enhancement proposition there. It is something we need to document, to research, document, and curate as a patrimony for the current generation and the future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, in the year 1767, a man called Henry Christophe was born in Sanssouci Estate in the parish of St. Patrick's. He migrated to to Haiti, joined in the struggle to defeat French colonialism, fought against Napoleon's imperial army. They defeated the powerful Napoleon army. And in 1811, Henry Christophe, a Grenadian, became the first king of Haiti. He built a fortress called the Citadel. He named it Sanssouci. How have we recorded and documented this? I suggest there is an enhancement proposition there. I'll give you another one, and it's more recent. In 1925, a woman called Louise Langdon was born in La Digue. She migrated to the United States. She married a man called Little. She became, what do I do with this? Right? I'll be finished in 3 or so minutes. And she became the mother of a man called Malcolm X. Malcolm X, I don't have to tell you, the rest is history. But he shook the world. And a lot of what we stand on today is on the shoulders of people like Malcolm X. There is an enhancement proposition there. And there's even a monetization proposition there. Because intellectuals, black intellectuals in America, in London, in Europe, all over the world, Africa, they can descend on Grenada from a Malcolm X day. Let us find these places, find these traces. Let us erect houses and museums. And let us display the history of these traces and these connections. And so there's a lot more I would have wanted to say, but I think I may have made my point. We need to be creative and proactive in excavating and giving visibility to this aspect of our heritage, of our cultural assets. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So thank you very much to our panelists, Mr. Francis Urias Peters, Mr. Christopher DeRiggs, and Mr. Angus Martin. Thank you very much, audience. You have been a wonderful day. We're running out of time. I'm so sorry. We can't have much of a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our theater practitioners and historians. Thank you so much. I've had the pleasure of working with all three gentlemen and learned a lot under their mentorship. Thank you so much for your contributions to culture in Grenada. Let's give them another round of applause.
Yeah.
I think they went beyond panelists. I think they went beyond panelism, for want of a better word. But we thank you so much for your presentation. That's copyright again, eh? All right, please stand, everyone. Just stand with me. That feels good, right? That feels good, right? So stretch. Let's see your best stretch. Your best stretch. There is a prize for the best stretcher. I think we have a winner. All right. Okay, who tell you to sit down? All right. All right, listen carefully. You put your left foot in, you put your left foot out, you put your left foot in, and you swallow shake. You put your right hand in. I'm going for it. I start with it. I'm sure if I say, finish the blanks. I want a fat girl. We didn't reach there yet. Take your seats. Our next presenter is a women's wear designer from Brooklyn, New York. I like his spirit. Actually, you want me to finish and do it? Stop it. She making me nervous, eh? I was good until Noel stand up. She's a women's wear designer from Brooklyn, New York, with a passion for travel, a love of vibrant colors, and bold prints. She entered the industry at age 19, opening a brick and mortar boutique for vintage lovers and trendsetters in Brooklyn. That boutique served as a catalyst for today's namesake clothing and lifestyle women's wear brand, Fee Noel, and further stimulated her desire to help women embrace their femininity. Fee is heavily influenced by her Caribbean heritage and large, close-knit family. She especially holds her mother and grandmother in high regard, crediting them for showing what drive, determination, and humble hearts will earn you. Aside from designing, she enjoys helping other young women start their own businesses, which is also able to accomplish through the Fee Noel Foundation, a program for young girls who are passionate about entrepreneurship. Well, you clap already? Clap again. Fee Noel, everybody, founder of Women's Wear Brand.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I got a hug from Fee Noel.
Let me take this off. How do I work this? Thank you. Okay, let's make sure. So I'm clicking this. Okay. Woo! I'm happy to be home. My family's home. Grenada means so much to all of us. And I know I walked a very important carpet at the Met Gala, but somehow being up here talking to Grenadians make me super nervous. But thank you for the love, the unconditional love that I feel once I come down the stairs. Before I was Fee Noel, when I was Fifi or Felicia, Grenada has a way of It's just a magical place. I always knew that. And I knew that because we didn't travel anywhere else in the world. If it was Easter, we're coming home. Christmas, we're coming home. Summer, we can't miss Carnival, we're coming home. So Grenada was always the destination for me. And I'm already going off script, but I also like to go with the feeling of what I'm feeling. And Mila said half of my speech. But let's start. You know, I want to tell you guys how I got here, this road, and my travels so far. So the road is less crowded when you follow your own path. And throughout this talk, I want you to think about what home means to you. The concept of home, where you feel most comfortable. Is it a physical place? Is it a mindset? Is it the people that you're around? And I ask this because I often felt myself lost amongst a sea of striving fashion entities. In the creative world, it's large. You want to stand out, you want to be heard, you want people to notice. But most importantly, you want to inspire, right? This is why I started fashion. This is why I started telling stories. I needed a strong voice and a point of view. It was at this juncture that I reached inward, infusing Grenadian identity in fashion. I didn't have to reach far because it's me at my purest form. Grenada is my home, and it's where I'm most comfortable. And I do want to add, it's where I feel the most beautiful. I am no different than you. We come from the same soil. So please allow me to play this video for you. The matriarch.
You don't have much with the courage like her, you know? Sometimes I wonder how her mom feels. Yeah. Yeah. And everybody, I see your granddaughter. I see your granddaughter. Miss George, I see your granddaughter. You must be proud. I say, yes, I'm proud and I'm happy. And I say, I'm glad God gave me the time to live to see her. Yes. Long ago when they call you grassroots, when you're poor. And I always hope that, I always look forward, teach them, show them respect. And what I used to do, what my mother showed me, I used to show my girls. I'm so proud that sometimes I wonder if she, I'm very happy for her. And she have a very, very, very lovely heart, nice. She prays a lot, and that's what I admire about her. She prays a lot.
What kind of legacy do you hope that you're creating for your family?
Well, she have done it already.
I came to Grenada to tell stories so long ago. I didn't come to record that. That was given to me as a gift by the LaFons who created that. That video is my most prized possession because my grandmother, she's a special woman, right? I always knew that by how she was regarded by her children, by how she was regarded from people on the island. I grew up watching them call her Teacher Sheila. I am well-fed. I come from a family of self-made entrepreneurs. This woman in this clip is my grandmother, Sheila George, known to most as Teacher Sheila or Cheshila. Well-fed is not only the name of her restaurant, but it's how she operates and teaches her children and her community. Being that she is a matriarch, she worked really hard to give her children the opportunity to create a better life for themselves. She instilled principles, values, and morals that was then passed on to me. And she is an important part of my story. Hold on. So this leads me to, as you can see, that's not even half of us, that's a quarter of us. Some of us living in Grenada, some of us living abroad. I'm a first-generation American, but I know for sure that I was definitely conceived in Grenada. When my mother was 8 months pregnant, she hid her belly and went to the States to have me. So I was actually smuggled into the US. It was a common belief in Grenada that having your children in the US would allow them more opportunities. Most importantly, though, I was raised Grenadian, and I grew up traveling back and forth. They made sure we knew where was home. I did not get a formal fashion education. I went to school, and I got my degree in finance and business, which later would come in handy. And while I was in college, again, my Caribbean parents, it was like, you're not gonna make clothes, you're gonna become an accountant, a lawyer, something else that they thought was a career to create wealth. I am pretty sure they're all surprised now. In opening my boutique, my ignorance is what allowed me to be fearless. And I truly mean that. I wasn't afraid to own my own business because that's what everybody in my family did. I got in the industry because I enjoy clothes. You can see my shoes. I was inspired by fashion, and I used it to express myself. Being from Grenada, as many of you can relate to, we were always surrounded by creativity and color. And I do want to add, this is not in my notes, but my first interaction with fashion was carnival season, everyone making their own costumes. Whether they had money, didn't have money, everyone was being creative on the road. They each came wearing something that they felt represented them, whether it was Juve morning or Monday night mass. This creativity has always been integrated into my work, from the colors to the fabrics to the storytelling, even the just flow of nature, the breeze, the essence, the vibe, and the spirit of the people and the land of Grenada. Our nutmeg print eventually became one of our identifying prints, along with the striped pant, which represents the carriage. I always knew Grenada was special because that's where I was from. I said this already, but we didn't travel anywhere else but back home. And I just wanna, oh, sorry guys, tech. Though I wouldn't mind watching that again. So this is a nutmeg print that you can see here. That's a photo of my grandmother standing in front of her restaurant. I always wanted to depict fashion in my own eyes. And that's what I wanted the world to see, because they have everything else. What they didn't have was my perspective. As I continued my journey, fashion became more than just clothes. It was about telling our stories and showing the value of our history. How can I use fashion to share our stories on a global platform? It's gorgeous. I focused primarily on resort wear. Infusing Grenada was so natural because so many people consider Grenada as a destination, even though we call it home. I wanted to tell the beautiful stories and connect back to the small island that I knew was impactful. I wanted to claim stake, and I wanted Grenada to be in the conversation with larger Caribbean islands such as Jamaica, Barbados, and Trinidad. I asked myself again and again, what can I stand on? This is where I really started to cultivate culture, community, and commerce in an intentional way. The first major project that was physically connected to Grenada was the Daughter of the Soul campaign and lookbook. That's a skirt I'm wearing here today. We had the idea to shoot a lookbook in Grenada which was a Herculean task given the lack of resources, and it was something we had never done before in this way. We quickly wrote a proposal, we presented it to the GTA, and let me tell you, it took so much convincing, explaining why this would matter. We essentially ended up booking the shoot. On top of that, before we got the official approval, we signed on a major magazine, Essence Magazine, which was a US magazine. It was so important. It was so important for me to create a pipeline between Grenada and the US in the creative world. I knew that we needed a really, really large stage to tell our stories. It made no sense for me to tell my stories to Grenadians, but to tell my stories to the world so they can have a look into Grenada. I was so proud of this work. We got to capture the beauty of Grenada and work with people and creatives from the island and other Caribbean islands as well. We scouted from the streets, we did formal model castings, we integrated talents. It was a proud moment and a major turning point of my career. And I want you to know that this video, that's Essence Magazine. But this video was played at New York Fashion Week for the world to see.
It's never too late for her to become her true self. Out there, she will taste a life that would make her want to roam forever. She will wrap herself in fabric made by the same hands that pray for her. You know, sometimes that path she's walking wouldn't be so nice though. Those sharp rocks will cut up the bottoms of her feet. But she'll keep walking. Like they say, no matter how fast the moon runs, daylight always catches up. And as sure as the sun rises every day, she will find her way home. I call her daughter of the soil.
It feels so good to play that video on this stage with everyone that knows what it means. And it felt good to show them there, But what it did, it was a turning path for my career. I use different art forms, I use fashion, I use storytelling. I put my grandmother on a platform that she never thought that she would be on. And that video represents so much to me and my family and to our island, Grenada, because it took something that we just do and showcased it in this light to the world, where everybody wanted an explanation, like, what does this mean? And there's two parts to this, right? It's things that we do for fun, that we do for entertainment, but also it represents our ceremonies that were passed down from our ancestors. And the fact that we still hold it in such high regard today means so much. The fact that I can share this part of Grenada. Jab is so important to our culture, amongst many other things. But this was something that I knew people were taking, right? They were doing their own rendition. And I said, we have to showcase this work ourselves. You see slum in there, right? Like, we had to showcase the people that this is what they do and give them a chance to shine on this platform. So I'm going to continue to do that. Wherever I go, Grenada goes. However high I go, Grenada goes with me. And not as myself, right, on my family's shoulders, on all the creatives that worked on this project in Grenada, shoulders, everyone. This is a representation of each and every one of us and what we're striving for. Although we use different platforms, different art forms, we think differently. That's what's important. My grandmother has 9 kids, right? And many more that she didn't give birth to, but that she's raised. And I am not the first to come back home to Grenada. They've all come back home to Grenada. We have Kenneth George, who builds Grenada. We have Dave George, who started Spice Mobile. You know, it's so many of them. All of them went and made something of themselves, and they all brought it back home. And that's what I want all of us to do. That's what I want to continue to do. And that's how we're going to expand the economic infrastructure of Grenada. Because I believe it's not about the big steps. It's not about that. It's not about the big things. And although these were really, really big things for me, but it's about the little steps that I took, the other creatives that I looked to my left and to my right to collaborate with. I didn't, you know, Issa Rae said something special, and someone else said it yesterday at the talk too. I wasn't trying to reach the person that's made it so far. I wanted to reach the person that had passion and that had ideas, like myself, that I could work with to bring this to life. And I want us to, I do pay attention to the youth, and I want to continue to do that because we can still plant seeds in them. But for the adults and the young adults, that you don't know how, you don't know where. Just start. My grandmother, the main thing she'd taught me is use what you have. We are an island of natural resources. Use what you have. Use the things that naturally come to you. And that is all you need to go forward. That is all you need to take the next step. And I'm not saying this to be cliche, because when you see me here, I don't want to tell you how great I am, right? I also don't like to speak of myself. I just do. And I want to lead by example. And I want receipts. I like receipts, right? This is what we've done. I want you to see yourself in me. I don't have something special that you don't have. I just had an idea, and I had the guts and the courage to take the first step. And it has been a long road. It looks pretty now, it looks beautiful now, but it has been a long road and journey to get where I am. And I'm at the point now where I can say, let me reach back. Let me show someone else how to do it, but not how to do it my way. Inspire them to do it theirs, but give them the courage and the tools and the resources so that they can move and go way further than I did. And that's it. That's me. That's what makes me happy. That's who I'm doing it for. The children who have that sparkle in their eyes, the young adults that I'm meeting that say, I want to be a designer. You can do it. You can. You can be a musician. You can be a designer. You can be an architect. You can be a screenplay writer. You can be that. And I don't need to sit here and tell you that you can. I just want to spark that little light inside of you that makes you take the first step. So thank you for allowing me. Thank you. And I do want to say it like this. Thank you for allowing me to unleash. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so nervous. Oh, you guys can hear that? Take this off.
The biggest stars get nervous. Ladies and gentlemen, little by little, one travels far. I'd like to recognize, oh yes, you can clap, yes. And you can give me a standing ovation too. I'll take it tomorrow. I would like to recognize in our presence Senator Quince Britton, lover of the arts. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. And I want to thank all the ministers who've been coming, popping in and out. I really love that support. I think it's a really, really good sign. In addition to being one of the most in-demand performers in the Caribbean and the diaspora, and its diaspora, he has performed in China, Europe, Central America, and other regions you would not even expect soca to be performed. He is widely considered as the king of jab-jab music, a subgenre of soca native to Grenada. Not only is he widely considered as the #1 performer in the Caribbean, fans throughout the region anticipate that he will be the artist most likely to become the first global soca superstar. He's an exceptional entertainer with a penchant of creating unforgettable songs and mesmerizing performances. He is steadfastly focused on his purpose to serve as Grenada and the Caribbean's musical and cultural ambassador. He is our international soca monarch king. Ladies and gentlemen, Hollis Map, Mr. Killer.
I want to say a pleasant good evening to the ministers, distinguished guests, media, staff of the hotel, and everyone else. I want to say a pleasant good evening. I'm actually nervous too. I think I just realized that it's easier to sing than to talk. You know? Yeah, I might have to literally put all of this into a song. You know? I want to say this though, that this evening, and I think that's why I think I'm a little bit nervous, because this evening is a very special evening. Not just for me, not just for Grenada, but for the Caribbean. And our youths, our stars, and our gems to come. So I want to congratulate the government. I want to congratulate the organizers of such a beautiful and most of all important event like this. Please give them a round of applause. I think I'm a little bit nervous too because my whole speech, I can't plan. So really and truly my speech is me, and it is very important for me this evening, and it's a different swing. I think the speech that they kind of gave to me was the journey to Africa. From here to Africa and stuff like that, that journey. But I want to say this. I could only express Africa in me. And I don't have to travel far to go to Africa because I am yet still Africa. A part of Africa lives with me, the blood in my veins. And my journey started like this. Even before me, there was my mother. At the age of 13, she started to have spiritual sightings where even her family would sometimes maybe beat her because they didn't understand what was happening. She grew into a woman trying to understand even herself. And she found a faith or a religion that could only express the things that she was experiencing or feeling. And that was the Baptist religion, which had the African expression in it. For that, she was condemned, ridiculed, pushed aside, and looked at in a funny way. But she did not stop. But then she had some beautiful children. You know, my first brother, Audric, Glenn, Catherine, Kennedy, Betty, Nelson, and then the seventh son. All right? And my little sister. At the age of 3, they played a little tape for me where my sister just gets your little radio. And you know the radios before with the cassette, you would actually press record and sing and you would record and stuff like that. And I was crying away in the background. All I want to do is sing too. At the age of 3. And I wasn't making any sense, but I was singing. She was also singing all the wrong words for the song, I realized after. But I wanted to record. And then it moved on from there. By the age of 7, the first thing I saw on my mother little black and white TV, them time you have to climb the house and turn the antenna to get the signal, and the knobs will go click, 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 and that would be your show time. On that little black and white TV, the first thing I saw was Superman. Them time Superman wearing short pants. And Superman was wearing short pants at the time. And I wanted to be Superman. So my mother had to buy me my little Superman vest, my little shorts and stuff like that. You see how supportive she was. Little did she know that she was putting me in trouble. Because you see, a child do not see the impossibilities. A child only see possible things in his minds. That is why it is so important to groom our children from young. Because music, I did not find music. Music found me. The things that we give to our children is so important. Because when I saw Superman, she didn't realize, it's only later she realized that she had to bring me to the health center 4 times last month. Because I would damage the foot, I jump up the house with the umbrella. I quickly realized, well, it wasn't so quick, but I realized that I couldn't fly. But the next thing I saw on that little television was Michael Jackson. And that is where it started for me. I couldn't stop dancing. I couldn't stop dreaming. I couldn't stop feeling the urge for music. It will haunt me at night. I couldn't sleep. When I wake in the morning while I'm drinking tea, I will be tapping the table and my foot under the table like this. And my mother will ask, what are you doing? And I'm back in the tea. When I go to school, well, I started to get licks every week for beating the table and dancing. By the age of 10, I started performing. I would go down the road and, they have Christmas activities. Ms. Grace Duncan will give toys to the kids and they have their little show. And the mistake they make was to give me a mic. You see? And by the age of 10, I started performing. I will take part in every competition there was. I will try to dance at any chance that I get. And that is where the vibes of life was for me as a child. Fast forwarding, I came to take part in all the talent search that I could find. Anyway, send me. And there was the big Grenada talent search, boy. And that competition, I actually was doing dancehall music still at the time. Dancing and singing dancehall music. Actually, there is a judge here from Barbados. Yesterday, she told me that she judged me and she placed me second. But I won. Oh, she's waving right there. Thank you so much, though. At least you give me second. But I won the talent search. Happy as a child, a young man, happy. But the winning prize was a ticket to go to the US. Mommy organized and I got the visa. When I get on that plane, I swear I make it. That is it. All in my head is that I'm going to Michael Jackson land. Not even America. But when I got there, I quickly realized that it's completely different from where I'm from. I came out the apartment, I say hello to a woman and she looked at me like if I was a little alien. Like that does not exist there. It was different for me. So I paid attention as a youth. I always liked to learn. So I would pay attention. And I quickly realized it is completely different. As time passed, my mother sent me to a friend that she had that was taking care of me, but I started to kind of go my own way because, I'm searching, I'm trying to find music, I'm on the road, but then I met the wrong friends. Because America wasn't the bed of roses. I started to get weary and frustrated as a youth because I'm not finding out. No, I am lost. At least in Grenada, I could go find a way with my friends and I was doing music. Now I am lost. So I end up down the wrong road. Now that was a journey that I had to hide from everybody. That was a journey that I also had to hide from my mother. But something will tell her she would know, but I would lie. I didn't want to. But I said, no, mommy, I'm all right. That's not a bad lie. When I put down the phone, I would cry sometimes. Because the thing is, what she instilled in me was the understanding of the wrong and the right and the values actually made me know that I am not in the right place. So at that moment, on the road with my friends, everything is wrong. I started to become very frustrated. I started to feel like if I go back home, it's like I failed. You know what I mean? I didn't find what I'm looking for. I'm here, I'm lost. I go back home, I feel like I'm going to go back home like nothing. So I decided, you know what? Forget music. Let me just do this thing. One of my friends got shot. Well, I can't give you all the details, but God knows. And one day, I was walking down it was Utica, and I saw a man on a wheelchair. His feet was cut off. That was the first time I saw a powered wheelchair, so I was staring like this. Evening, I saw a girl, her feet was like this on another wheelchair. I said, how come I seen them people so today, boy? Anyways, I took it as nothing. But But by the weekend, I was so frustrated. Some things happened, and I felt like there was retaliation happening, things on the street happening, and I felt like I was only going to live for about a week. I only had maybe about a week, I felt. It was okay at that moment for me to feel to give up, because I felt like I was lost. Now in that mood, in my mind, I had plans. And those plans was nothing good. But in the little basement apartment where I was jamming myself, I like music so much that I gather up all them cassettes, them people will throw it from upstairs. And I would put them to play. But I will say something. The Father never really lets you go. So I will put the cassettes to play, and while I put in the cassettes to play, I have the plans in my mind, and my plans, I'm not going to shift from it because I'm a very determined young man. If I am a footballer, I'm going to try to be the best footballer. If I am bad, I'm going to be good at it. You see? So it's just a thing about me. I'm very determined. So in my mind, I have all these plans, and I put the cassette to play, and I like to clean also because, you know, with mommy, if you don't clean when the morning come, his licks. So I clean in the little apartment where I was. And I heard a melody. The melody that I heard grabbed my attention, so I run back to the tape. But you know them time when you don't have fast forward, nothing working, then you have to flip the cassette and you have to, you understand what I'm saying? You don't have rewind, so you have to flip the cassette, fast forward it, and then put it back. And when I put back the cassette, I heard the melody again, and the song said to me, all the time that I'm seeing the people on the street with a wheelchair and this, the Father was showing me some important signs that I will then come back to, because the universe is something that sends you down roads where there are always signs. Every single step determines your future. Nothing happens with just coincidence. Every single step determines your future. And that guidance from the universe, if I am an engineer of vehicles and then I want to build a 4x4 to go off-road, I'm going to put big wheels on it. I'm going to put a winch in the front of it. I'm going to put 4x4 in it. I'm going to actually put lights for when it get dark, and I'm going to put a navigation system for when I get lost in the woods. So how the Father could then create me, the most sophisticated machine ever created, and don't give me a GPS system? See? So he was literally preparing me for something different. So the melody wasn't just a melody, it was a song that somebody else long ago sang that was also for me. And the words of that song said, if I was blind and I can't see the flowers blooming in the garden, I was deaf and I can't hear anything I wanted to hear. Was crippled and I can't go anywhere I wanted to go. I was dumb and I can't say anything I wanted to say. But if you can see and if you can talk, if you can hear and if you can walk, you should be grateful to the Father for what he has done. You should be grateful to the Father for what he has done. And now listen again. If I was blind and I can't see the flowers blooming in the garden, and the tears rush out of my eyes, and I felt like somebody touched you on your shoulder, and you felt weak, so you started to look around to make sure nobody ain't coming, and you close the door. And then I'm on my knees now because there is something making me tremble from inside. I remember the people I saw on the street with no feet, and I said to myself, but I could walk and I could talk and I could sing. What about if I couldn't see the face of my beautiful mother? What about if I look in the mirror and I couldn't sing and I couldn't see myself? I have every single thing that I need. The Father has designed me beautiful, strong, amazing, resilient, and he also made me black. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop. And that was the time I literally found that part of me that said, you know what? If there is food being thrown away, why shouldn't I eat a good plate every day? How much vehicles are there on the planet? Why shouldn't I drive a good one? How much houses are there? Wouldn't I live in a good one? I need to then choose who I want to be. I have the ability to be who I want to be. And from today, I promise you, Father, because if I promise myself, I might lie. So I promise you, Father, that I would not turn back. I'm going to be great. I called my mother and I cried to come home. Well, I had to try to get out of where I'm at, but then I went to have a conversation that was so deep with all the tears in my eye that that person that was hard as a rock becomes soft like flour. You see? And it was okay. I leave and I come back home. Nobody knows because I have to hide that part of me. And I started music. I saw soca in a different light. I saw Inspector on the truck one day, and I said, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm doing dancehall music, but the world was very big at that time. Now the world is small by social media, but the world was big. I wasn't busting in the dancehall music, so I decided, you know what? Soca is it for me. Inspector one time come off the truck, and he touched me on my head, so I go home. I didn't even want to wash my head. That's my legend. You know, and I started. When I started, I did my first song to grab, you know, the attention and stuff like that. But then after that, once I realized that people accepted me, I started to sing the gospels. But people didn't know. They didn't know, they didn't understand. They jump up to my songs all the time and but they didn't realize. Because my soca song was saying, crossing over through the valleys, me and my soldiers all behind me. But will the heathen reign until the end of time? Your king is here again. Come, let us bond him. So then we tell them, no, I'm not turning back. Forward ever, no turning back, no way. I'm not turning back. Forward ever, no turning back, no. I'm not turning back, no way. I'm not turning back, no way. I'm not turning back. Listen to the lyrics. Come to burn out all Satan worshippers, Satan gossipers. Towards them my heart is cold like Antarctica. This one rough like the chainsaw massacre. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Too much time them try block my part. If it's block them one block, tell them come and block. Lyrics enter in a belly, bust out in a back and sew up them body like clock. Hold on a man, tell them this carnival. Lyrics enter them brain and eat out them skull like cannibal. Satan, this is the funeral. Mix them up like mineral. I with the lighter in your hand, and the torch them in your hand, and the gas them in the can. Satan, you're going to get burned. But people will be jumping up, no realize. You know? But I was singing about my journey. I was singing about me not turning back. I was expressing that power that I now feel inside. And I did songs upon songs, but still they didn't understand, because when I say defense, 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 them start to break down everybody fence. Everybody fence flat. I went to St. Lucia. I had to have a meeting with the commissioner of police, the airport fence leaning so. Defense, defense. But then the lyric said, wake up this morning and I set myself a mission to keep on fighting and to break down walls of Satan. Don't matter the size of wall, I come here to make that fall. That is the battle call. Just say I just can't cool. You cannot take me for fool. I'm hotter than burning flame, I'm badder than raging bull defense. I keep fighting. You see, I was fighting. And that is your own fight. And I want to say this. Culture is not really external. Culture needs a host. And the culture man and the culture woman are the host of our culture. We express our culture. Our culture lives in our veins. While I was on that journey, Because my mother is so spiritual, I also started to study spirituality so I could understand who she is, what is happening, and all of that. So I started to dig deep. Every country that I travel, I would find the books to read to understand different religions, this, that, and try to educate myself as best as I could. And one time I read a book, and a little yellow book, it said, free your mind. It taught you all about the great wonders of the world. But at the end of the book, it said, why did you read me when everything that you have read you already know? Because it lives in your veins. Why do a child look like his mother? Why do a child look like her mother or her father? Because your genes have memory. So in our veins, our ancestors is still alive. They have not died. Now, when I started to understand this, now this is not just for the creatives, but because the creatives, you guys are different. You guys are different. You want to dress different. Look at me. Look at me. You guys are different. I want to big up Miss Kim Francis for, you know what I mean? Bless her love. Yeah. Miss Kim Francis. Yeah. When I learned that, he also said, to know, you must know. If you don't know, then you will not know. What does that mean? If there is a wing packed in your back, and you don't know that there is a wing there, you're going to run off some rock and fall. Brrr, you're tumbling down. But if I know there is a wing, I'm going to open it and I'm going to fly. So you have to know. That's why education is so important. Knowing makes you know. Because I knew that there was genetical memory in a system that has been created by the greatest of all great, the Lord of thy Lord and God of thy God, my creator, that lived a system inside here that holds the keys to understanding what happened before and what will then also happen. Because we ain't reinventing the wheel. Don't think we inventing this thing. That system, I understood that now my ideas do not come from my mind. Ideas are floating around in the universe. Our minds are like antennas. Our minds are that antenna that is actually going to break down the frequency chains and the signals that are coming in. Our human beings sometimes function like a cell phone. Cell phone have a battery, electrical battery that sends an electrical charge to the motherboard. You press call, create a complete socket. That complete socket called ferrons called signal called frequency. Now somebody in Germany picks up that phone and they're speaking to me in real time. Hello, hi, what's up? You go in the real time. That doesn't have wire. Now, how does that travel? People send pictures to your phone all the time, but you don't think about how does it reach there. There is a system, and that system, every system has been designed after the systems of nature, and every machine is after the human anatomy. We are the greatest machines. So, I learned to download instead of just think. So, ideas start flowing. Music start flowing, and I just decide I am going to do everything in the most positive way that I can. And I am going to navigate, not just by myself, but I am going to ask the universe, the Father, to guide me. And that is how I am here today. And I explained those things so the creatives could understand. Before, all the specialists and the people who understand the business part of it, you, the creative, it is different for you. You first have to know yourself. You first have to understand that what you are doing is not just you, but it is planted in you. You first have to understand that you are special. When you go to the show, when you're on that stage, when you are painting, somebody buys your painting because you are special. Somebody goes to the store and they buy clothing from Miss Fee Noel because she did something that is special. When I on stage and I dance and I sing, that is special because there is thousands of people in the crowd that does not do what I do. You are a creative. And there is a left brain and there is the right brain. There is control system that they have given to us that we need to learn to break as a people. This is an education that we need. Because some of us, we struggle every single day. No matter how nice we dress and we come out the road, there is frustration somewhere there, sometimes lingering in our mind that we need to get rid of. Trying to find our way in a system that has been designed to control us, to keep us here. And we in the island here in Grenada have the opportunity to now actually break that chain, come away from the mental slavery, that application that make us... Thank you. To break away from that chain. There is a psychological implant in our society that actually keeps us in a certain type of bondage. For years when I want Soca Monarch, and I don't want to make this political, because I will also say this, I stand firm, I am not a politician, and I stand firm for my country. Eyes green and gold, nutmeg power. You see? And I think that I'm supposed to be free to live in that way, because it's not our currency, it's not our dollars. Money only have power because we have faith in it. Our currency, our greatest currency, no nation is stones and trees. Your nation is your people, and your greatest currency is your people. So the times before, I went to places like Trinidad representing my island, and they just left me stranded. I have to make it on my own. But creatives, I never give up. There was one time when I go to Trinidad, I was supposed to represent Grenada. I am there stranded. I lied to my mother again. I stopped lying now though. But I lied to my mother again. And I say, Mommy, yeah, they're supposed to be there to collect me, but there was nobody there. I was just determined because I had the opportunity to perform in the Soca Monarch in Trinidad for the first time. Now when I'm there, I am lost on the street, don't know nobody, spend some time at the hotel, and one morning I literally wake up, was crying. I go downstairs in the restaurant, in the lobby, to actually get free orange juice every morning because I have to squeeze the little money that I have. On the 2 days before, I said, you know what, I only could spend 2 more days here. I'm going to have to go back home. Because, let me, forget that. But, let me just start now, I always just start some kind of confusion. Let me not say that, let's focus here. So, I was there, and I wake up and, again, the guardians start coming. Go downstairs for the oranges. I said, nah, I don't. I crying. Them go see me crying. I ain't going to. But then I went. And then I met Judah. You know Judah's song system. I met Judah. Judah said, what happened to you? I said, nothing. I try again to lie. I said, no, killer, tell me what going on. He paid for 2 more days in the hotel. Give me the link to the people. He gave me, yeah? 1 minute. He gave me the link to the people to actually do the show. I did the first show. After I did the first show, so much people start coming in. I started to answer the phone and play my own manager. You understand? Make enough money to rent a house in Trinidad, get friends, and do everything on my own. I survived. Don't ever give up. And I know, next time I need an hour. Because I literally just started to speak, and I want to say this: never give up. And what I did is listen to the universe, and I did not follow the hype. I listened to the universe, and I want to say this to the government and all the people who put this together: don't let this great moment happen, and then there is no action. Thank you. It is time to unleash.
request while they're moving. I just want you to sing Spice Up. Right here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I only sing any first time on stage. That's okay. You can let me do it. For Grenada. Introduce.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give Mr. Killer 1 more minute. Y'all remember the other day I was club out of London. Hello, I should back up for you? Need a backup singer? 1 minute, first verse.
Now I have to sing. Well, everybody go sing with me today. And I want to sing this special song because I also want to say that Grenada, I can't sing shadow right now. All you want to party, no, it's not party time. I just want to say thanks to all the people who travel here also to actually share their love, their blessings, their knowledge, and their power and vibration with us. Thank you. Grenada, you are the best. And I want to sing just, they say one verse. The other day me go a club out of London. Who approached me, this beautiful woman. She said, excuse me, could I ask you a question? Me say, sure, baby, please just prolong. The woman turned, she asked me where me come from. Say me come from down a Spice Island. I coulda see it in a she eye. She already won this island boy. She hold my hand, she pull me upon the dance floor. Hold me tight and she wouldn't let me go. When me try walk, the woman pull me back. And in me ear she start talk and she say the rock. She love the Spice I rock. Well, welcome to the rock. She love the Spice I can't hear you. What? Hey.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
The Spice I rock. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Killer. Such an inspiration to all of us, not just the musicians in the house, I am sure. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to end this afternoon, day 2 of Unleash, with a dynamic panel discussion. Y'all ready for some dynamic musicians who will discuss from local to global? Y'all want to hear this? And we go today. Yeah, if you want to hear it, say yeah. Hey, y'all, you can follow instructions. I like that. I want to introduce our panelists. The first one, you met her yesterday. Somebody said this morning she was real good. Make some noise for Allison Francis. And Allison, you can make your way on stage. Fee Noel is our second panelist for this discussion. And then I want to introduce 2 people as you have not met yet in this conference. The first, she creates an emotive blend of Afro-Caribbean pop music. The overarching theme throughout her songs speak to female independence, mental health, and the shared experiences of hardworking individuals trying to fashion success with whatever tools they can. She has a concert this Sunday, wide open. Free ad, right? I'll take my VIP pass after the show. She goes by the name Sabrina Francis. Sabrina continues to work hard and overcome hurdles in the constant pursuit of her dreams. Excited about process, the objective is clear, and she doesn't plan on slowing down anytime soon. Sabrina Francis, everybody. Our next panelist is a Canadian musician. And I want to switch that around. A Canadian musician. Smooth jazz pianist. Record producer and owner of Thunderdome Recording Studio. He has worked with some big names. They're doing their own thing. He is recognized and accomplished as a composer and arranger for television, radio, and film. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Eddie Bullen. Musician, producer, recording studio, and publishing company executive. Our moderator for this session, from local to global. He's no stranger in the music industry. Mr. Killer loves him. We all love him. He got me my first little gig with Peace Corps. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Eugene Gittens, moderator for From Local to Global.
Testing one. Can everybody hear me? It is wonderful to see so many, and I'm sorry, so many creatives in this room here today. It's really been wonderful. What do you think of the conference so far? Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to say there are many people who have worked hard to make this possible, but I just want to personally say a special, hear aloud, call out, big up to Mr. Orlando Patterson. Give him a round of applause, please. No. I mean, what did I say, Patterson? Sorry. Who is Orlando Patterson anyway? Mr. Orlando Romaine. Oh my God. Okay. So, you know, now I understand why those Trinidad artists, this is going live, this is going to Trinidad? Now I understand why them artists, general, quake in their boots when they have to sing after Mr. Killer. Because that's a hard act to follow, really.
Yes.
Let's hear it from Mr. Killer. I'll give you a little story of me and Mr. Killer. I used to do the talent search he talked about. So when I came back to Grenada, I started singing national talent shows competition. He won all of them. But why did I stop doing talent search? Because the last one I did, Killer became so popular that all the youths broke down the trade center and put me through a lot of costs. So I stopped doing the show. Anyway, we're here for something different. We're here to take this, to look at how we go from local to global. And I'm sure many of you in the audience, as creatives, may have already reached that point where you're at a level where you think, look, it's time for me to go to the next level. And given our economy, you know, the small size of our economy, I think creative practitioners like ourselves, we have to think globally because we have to, at the end of the day, try to make a living out of this. And it's the only way too that sector can grow if we have that mass rather than just a small market in which we live. These folks on the stage, well, except for Alison, but she's here for a different reason, but certainly Eddie Bullen, Fee Noel, and our dear Sabrina Francis have all reached a level where at different stages they are taking Grenada, taking greens, right, to the world. And so I would want to start with maybe the person closest to me, Sabrina.
Hello.
I know you have a big concert coming up this weekend. What day is it?
Mother's Day, May 14th.
Mother's Day,
Wide
May 14th.
open.
Wide
Mama
open.
say
If
it
you're
is.
here, go. Right. You have been making a lot of waves, you know, for the past couple of years.
Trying.
Putting us on the map, putting Grenada on the map. I know when you go back to the UK shortly,
Yeah.
you have a gig at Royal Albert Hall.
Yes.
That's very significant. Let's hear it.
Thank you.
What would you say has helped you to make the strides you have made in the short space of time that you have made them?
I think the biggest thing for me would be my team. Being an independent artist is it's a lot to do. Every little aspect of it is almost like a full-time job. So I can't stress the importance of a group of people. It could be a small group of people. I have like 5 people with me who think of what we could do. We think of ideas, and then there's like the everyday running to get to a point where we would like to be eventually. But I would say the biggest thing that you need is just a group of people that believe in what you're trying to do and you get together and just try your best with whatever tools you have to get to the next level.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll skip it for a minute. I'll go to Eddie. As most of you would know, Eddie is a smooth jazz artist, but he is also a music producer. He has his own studio, as I said before, and he has produced many people. I know lately he's been working with a Barbadian artist, and he's done a lot. But Eddie, I know your journey coming out to Grenada to try to break through an area like smooth jazz in Canada, so taking a local Grenadian musician and trying to make it in Canada. How was that possible?
Well, I mean, you have to have stakeholders. And I mean, I'll correct you as well, too. I am a smooth jazz artist, but I've worked extensively with all the Calypsonians in Trinidad, from Marshall. I produced Marshall's stuff to Sparrow and all in between. And in Jamaica, from Toots and the Maytals to Beanie Man, I've worked with all those artists. But my thing, and I mean, my thing is contemporary jazz, smooth jazz, jazz. So when I came to Grenada, I met Jeremy, and I thought he was an amazing musician, and I encouraged him to write some songs. He had pieces of songs, and I encouraged him to finish the songs, write the songs, brought him to Canada, and I did the record. However, what I have to do is, you have to have stakeholders in this industry. I cannot do it all by myself. I used to be able to do it all by myself, but there's so many moving parts in this industry right now that I can't, and you can't keep up with it. I mean, last week, Facebook, you can do this on Facebook, and this week, all of a sudden, you can't do it. So I have stakeholders. I have what we call a tracker in the United States who works on getting the record to radio. I have social media strategists who takes care of all his social media posts. They look at every moving part. I have another company, which is Believe Distribution. They are the biggest independent distribution company in the world, so they handle my record company. So it's having all those people in place. I mean, Jeremy he's getting over 5,000 spins a day. I mean, he's like, just think about it. He has over 450, actually 4,500,000 streams. That's two and a half times the population of Trinidad, right? And he did that in a year. Those are the kind of numbers that, right?
So to follow up on that real quickly, though, there must be, I know they are, I've seen them, there are musicians, artists in the audience. Mm-hmm. How do they prepare themselves to take the music from where they are now, locally, to a global level? Just very quickly,
Well, I mean, one of the things is social media is the vehicle that everybody looks at. And I know it is. I mean, we are a country of 100,000 people, so it is trying to get everybody on board. That is the thing that we all look for. That's the thing that companies look for. That's the thing that I look for with regards to an artist. And that's what I try to cultivate. And trying to find new ways of marketing and promoting yourself. For example, there was a lot of talk of ChatGPT. You have to figure, once there's a new, some kind of new idiom to promote yourself, you have to find a way of doing it before the rules and regulations get in, and then it sort of squeezes everything. So, for example, I think that's one of the things that we have to look for. Look for unique ways of marketing and promoting your stuff. I mean, that's kind of really what it is to break through to get to a global audience. Mm-hmm.
Fino, well, already established brand, and for the other fashion designers in the audience, you already established. And I know the hardest thing is, it's one thing to get there, but to stay there is probably even harder. Mm-hmm. So when you get there, how do you stay there and even go further?
I would have to say, for me, it was collaborating with other artists and bringing out all our resources together. It's how I've been able to stay, it's how I've been able to have an authentic story, and it's how I've been able to just grow, and it's more of a horizontal growth than a vertical growth. And for me, it's very important that I continue to connect with my peers and create magic with them. And I want other people to know that that's an avenue for them as well. Like if you want to model and there's a photographer that's local, work with them. Someone's gonna see it, especially in the age of social media. Collaboration, I will always hold dear to my heart because it's fusing worlds together, and that's what we need.
Yeah, I think, you know, people agree with you. Collaboration, I think as sometimes maybe our culture makes us a little wary of collaboration sometimes, but it certainly would work in this industry. So I totally agree with you. Alison, way down there. From a sort of administrative and, you know, Caribbean export type perspective, what kind of facilities are available to support that move from local to global?
Well, I think this morning started it right. The first thing you have to do is to build your capacity, and that helps you in terms of understanding, first of all, your sector. I think I would have alluded to that when I made my presentation. If you don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going to. And I think we're hearing it over the few days. So if you want to unleash, you need to really and truly believe in yourself, let go, and go for it. But today it was mentioned about understand what's your unique value proposition, why they will want to consume from you outside of anybody else. And then the support that we give after in terms of your capacity building, you have to take it through your stages. A lot of us, or a lot of creatives, a lot of persons try to rush for that success. And by rushing, you can miss some very critical steps. So you build your capacity, you showcase, you engage, you do your mentoring and your coaching. We heard it talk about, I think it was on the first day, but that is critical for the creatives, your coaching and the mentorship, and to go through and to learn from each other. And I think what I'm hearing this afternoon and what is very important as well is the issue of collaboration. I would have said it in my presentation as well. It's not about going alone. I think Simon mentioned, you know, you're a photographer, but you have the writer, you have the other artists next to you. It's about collaborating and how, as a sector in of its own, you can go forward. So then just a final point before we continue is that I think for us and where Grenada is concerned and what we're trying to do, consider this issue from a festival standpoint. I do believe we would have mentioned it again earlier about whether, you know, they come just, it's not just about carnival, but you come for a theater production. And the theater would involve fashion, the theater would involve your music, the theater would involve, in some cases, your animation, and you'll be able to pull all the sectors, your craft. But the basic thing is, in terms of where there's support for, and you know, I hope you'd hear from like CAFA and the other development organization and support, is in terms of helping you with your capacity, and then getting you to market, showcasing. But getting you to market, and I would have said it when I discussed before, to trade, you don't need to leave. And that's where the digital economy comes in. And I just want to identify that local to global don't mean you got to leave this rock. All right, you can get out there by being digital. You can get out there by making sure you have an online presence. If you're not online, you do not exist. And this morning we talk about the fashion and you know, the virtual reality and the AIs and different things. So you're going to sell your fashion, they must be able to see it, you know, you must be able to put that dress on you. I spoke to some youths at UNESCO, was earlier on this year or late last year. And that's the idea. If you want to push yourself out there, the person out there must be able to see. And we look at building that capacity and then think from the policy standpoint and so forth then, for those who have the actual good, how do we deal with the issue of e-commerce and payments and transfers? But that's a whole other discussion and level we need to talk about when we talk about local to global, if you're going to talk about trading and getting your product out there. Services is easy, digital, online. But when you talk about a product now, you have to talk about the issue of your e-commerce and your payments and the movement of your goods. So we could discuss further, but there's a lot of support through our development agencies within the region to help that. And I think the initiative what's here today starts that with what the government has done. And we need to, as they said, I think Mr. Killer said it, and I want to reiterate, you can't make after today or tomorrow. It cannot stop. It has to continue. But I want to impress. You have to continue it. I don't want the government to continue it. I want you to continue because it's about you. And it has to be about you, not the government.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Salient point there. Sabrina.
Yes.
What are some of the challenges you've had along the way? Like maybe 2 big challenges that you were able to overcome that are significant that you can share with others.
Okay. There are many challenges that I feel like you face as an independent artist. One of them, the biggest one I would say, is the challenge of finances. As an artist, we feel like we're stuck sometimes because we have all of these things that we want to say and all of these skills that we want to showcase, but we ain't have no money. I would say start wherever you are. So you're an artist, you have something to do, you want to do it. Money not just gonna fall out of the sky. So start wherever you are. You have social media as your tool. You have social media as a tool, you have your arts, you have your crafts, you have everything that you want to do. Sit for a moment, find your team, and come up with a plan. There was a moment in my life where I was just doing every and anything just to do out of like your desperation. You're trying here, you're trying there, you're trying there. One of the strongest things that I've been able to do was get my team, sit for a moment, analyze where I am, analyze where I want to go, get as much information as you can from there and come up with some kind of a plan, as small as it is. And when you have a plan, I feel like there are people who you could present that plan to, sponsors. I found one, his name is Dieter Burkhalter. And there are people who believe in the things that you want to do. There are grants that exist. But I just feel like you have to sit with your team or with yourself, come up with some kind of a plan that you could present to those people who are able to help your journey. And so things go from there. It's never that simple as I just said it, but you know, it's a place to start. Gather information, get a plan together. Present it to a bank, present it to an investor, present it to somebody, and see where it goes from there. That's how I kind of broke into my challenge of finances. It's still there and it will always be there, but I'm just saying, I feel like this is what I could give you to start with.
Thank you. I don't know if everybody in the audience knows, but Sabrina's mom is an excellent singer as well. I knew her mom before I knew her. She has a great Christmas song that plays every Christmas on Grenada radio. So big up your mom as well.
Thank you.
Eddie, your dad used to have a music store in Grenada.
Yeah.
Bullen's Music Store, Lower Lucas Street. And you grew up in the music store. You grew up, I remember you were a kid playing the keyboards when I go in there to look at the guitars and stuff, and that's where it started, right?
Exactly.
How much does the artists have to prepare themselves, especially singers, musicians? How much do you think, especially now when you can probably go on a computer and kind of make the beats and not really know much music, how much do you think to go from local to global? What kind of music rudiments do you need, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have the passion, and I had the passion, and my dad noticed that, and every time he sold a piano, I was the last point of sale. He'd say, "Son, sit down and play the piano for those people," and that would be the last point of sale. People pulling money out of their bosoms and trying to, it's because they want their child to play like me.
I also heard you played for the convent girls, I heard that's what your motivation was, playing for the convent girls as they walk by.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think really it's the passion. You have to, and that, for me, I had the passion. I mean, I would have my headphones on, in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, my dad would wake up and freak out because I have to go to school the next morning and I'm listening to music. So it's the passion. And I think, I mean, to sort of echo what Sabrina was saying with regards to having a plan to go from local to global, I've worked with a couple of other Caribbean islands, and one of the things that, actually Barbados, one of the things that they do is we have a lot of festivals in Toronto, especially in the summer. There's festivals everywhere. And some of the festivals, they have big name artists, but sometimes what they do is if you could get to, for example, to Toronto, and what the Barbados government has been doing is financing the groups to get to Toronto. And what the festivals do is they headline that group. That group is in all their social media, so they pay them as a local group. So in terms of getting your name out there, it's on the radio all across, the Canada,
about, you're being part of the festival. So that's a thing that I've done several times and it's a part of the tourism component of the Barbados Tourism Authority. Their branding is tourism. They want to make sure when it's cold in Canada, you come to Barbados, and we have the better beaches. Any Bajans in the house?
Any musicians? Any?
No, but we have wonderful, beaches, and I think it's a thing that I think can happen as well too. So Sabrina could be playing in the, in the Beaches Jazz Festival as a headliner, right? And the amount of media and the amount of social media that gets pushed. So that's a little point from local to global. That's just, to sort of add to your plan, is trying to figure out how to do that. So that's kind of a way to do that,
Thank you, man. See, again, people at different stages, and everybody's path is different. I'm sure, every creative's path is different. But how would you know that the time is right for you to move from this point, the local, to the global? You've been doing it for a while. When did you get a sense, or how would you know the time is right, that you're ready to make that kind of move?
I don't necessarily think, for me, I have to break things down, right? So when you say local to global feels so big, and it felt big to me. So I broke it down, and it was just like, what is the next step, right? Because I can't see the top of the steps. There's something called the right timing. There's something called the right people. There's so many different levels. And for me, it's like, I think of it as, what is the first thing that I have to do? Is it make my design? Is it get it produced? Is it put it on a friend? And I think that what causes the rush of what you was talking about, Allison, is that you're thinking about the bigger picture too soon. So you're always going to feel that burden of, I'm not where I want to be, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And I want people to debunk that. I want them to make small goals. I really stand by the little by little, right? Because I didn't start out making clothes with this big idea, like, I'm gonna be global, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. It's along the way that when I started trying to follow the script of an industry that wasn't designed for me. Like I was like, oh, this is how they're doing it. These are how many collections. This is what I couldn't finance that, nowhere near. And I was like, what's my story? What can I say? I didn't have to. No one can own Grenada, right? It's a place. No one can own it. But I said, I can talk about it in my space. I can talk about Grenada, and I can make people interested in, like, well, what's Grenada? Why does she keep talking about Grenada? It was these simple little steps that I took that allowed me the runway to take this globally. But I didn't start out thinking of being global. I didn't start out thinking like, oh, it's going to be Grenada, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. It was different trials and tribulations where it's like, there's so many designers. What makes me special? And this was something that I asked myself, right? And Serena, I'm sure you asked, like, your mom had a great voice. You come from a family of great voices. It's like, what makes me special? And someone else can't tell you that. You have to answer that for yourself.
Well, people will actually ask you this question.
I mean,
and you have to be able to answer it.
It's like, why should I invest in you? Why you?
Why you?
Yeah, why you?
Yeah, why should I give you this money to do this? What's
But
so nice about
I
it?
always say, though, that, once you work on your craft, once you're good, somebody will find you, and somebody will invest in you.
Yes, so that, for you to say that, that's what I want to end with, in the sense of, just make sure that you are good. Build what you have. Keep working at what you're doing in your own way. And I can guarantee you that your people will find you. They will find you. They will want what you have. They will support what you have. And guess what? You know how you go global? It's not from you screaming at the mountaintop. It's from all the other people that you touch that is now spreading your gospel and your word.
Were you going to add something, Sabrina?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I don't consider myself a global act in the least at all. I feel like I'm still at the very, very, very beginning of my journey. And as Fee said, I'm not thinking, oh, I want to be global. That's not the plan at all. The idea for me, my goal, if I could be quite frank, is so that I could build a little house for my mother in my days. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, what does that look like? And where do I need to be for this to happen? And my small goal among my team is simply that I would like to be able to fill out a space of 2,000 people. And then I feel like my music would be sustainable. So it's like really like small steps that you're thinking about. I'm not thinking about, oh, how can I be Beyonce? That's not the idea. It's what's my next step? What do I do? I want my music to be sustainable. I want to be able to be singing when I'm 50 years old. So what could I do now? What's the small thing that I could do now to get there, slowly but surely? And it takes a lot. I've been doing this for like 10 years already, you know, and now I'm on the stage talking about from local to global, and I'm not even halfway there. So just be prepared for a lot of work. You're creatives, you know what it is, you expect it, but I just want to reinforce that it's really, really a lot of work, and it takes a lot of belief in yourself, and the team you have need to believe in you. So, yeah.
And by the way, anybody in here from St. Patrick, like Sabrina? Okay, well represented, very good. Alison, do you want to add anything to this conversation?
I want to tell Sabrina she needs to unleash that spirit. I hear her speaking it, but she wants to tie it on. Unleash. You're talking about the small steps. Don't be afraid. The glass is always half full, and there's going to be risk, but you've got to fail to get up again. I know you say you're trying, you know, but I'm feeling that you're speaking about, you know, that this, and you don't want to be the Beyonce. I could understand that because, like, everybody wants to be the Rihanna, but that's a phenomenon.
No, it's not saying that it's not a possibility. I'm saying that the thought to start there, it could be overwhelming. So that the people who want to achieve it is kind of just like, okay, instead of starting there, let's think of let's climb the stairs. You know what I mean? And I'm not at the top of the stairs. I feel like I'm where a lot of people here are. And I don't know if you could relate to where I am. It's really just finding the gut to take the next step.
Yeah, and then to assess.
Oh, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If your dreams don't frighten you, they're not big enough.
If your dreams don't, I'm terrified every day. I'm terrified every day. But I feel like the people that I have on my team make it very possible. And I feel like I'm not afraid to try the biggest things. I mean, I'm going to play at the Royal Albert Hall opening for Asha. I'm not afraid to try it. You know what I mean? But I'm saying before, there was a time when I would have thought about it and then get overwhelmed. And I feel like it makes it easier and more enjoyable when you think of your next step. And the steps are going to get bigger and better, and you're going to start enjoying the journey a little bit.
In a very nice comfort zone.
Yeah.
But you said you have a good team, so let the team take some of the pressure off of you.
Listen, I'm going to do something.
Pressure never goes away.
Thank you. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to take 3 questions, because I know you might be down to ask a question that I didn't ask, so I'm going to take 3 questions from the audience. Anybody wants to ask any one of these people a question? Stand up. Just come forward a little bit. I'll say the question over after you ask it.
Okay, so my question is general for anyone who cares to take a stab at it. Let me just start like this way. So let's say there's a global market for your product, but there isn't a local market for your product. So locally, people are not very interested in what you're creating, what you're passionate about doing. And sometimes you feel like, okay, should I just pack up and move to the States or move to Canada or move to England, where people will take my product, but then you love the country and you want to do what you're doing here. How can you build a local base to use as a launch pad to reach your global market where it's sustainable? Do you have any tips or ideas of how to overcome that hurdle of not having a local interest in what you are doing?
Sure. get the distribution
Right.
channel.
So it's a long question, but I'll just quickly paraphrase.
That's a good
You want to,
question.
just so everybody could hear it.
It's you find a distribution channel, even like with products. If they don't, you have specialty products, you have your niche products, and so forth. You find someone, if you know the market, you would have done your market research. I keep talking about sector research and market research. If you know who likes your product, where they like your product, you find a distributor. You don't have to leave Grenada. I keep telling you that. To get your product out there, you find a distributor, but contract, the lawyer and me will come out. You make sure you have a proper contract for that distribution and make sure you get your returns, etc. But you don't have to leave. If you know your market and you know who wants your product, you find a distributor in that market. You have to be very careful about the contracts you sign with these distributors so that they don't take your intellectual property or deny you from having distribution rights with other persons and that they tie you in. But you can find a distributor. Just once you know your market, you know who are your consumers, you get a distributor. You don't have to do everything, and that's about understanding the value chain and where you fit in that value chain.
Okay. There's a mic up there now. There's a mic there now. Anybody else? We're going to take two more questions.
I just want to answer your question. Sometimes you can be a gem amongst your people, but they may not see you that way, okay? Sometimes that happens, right? Where you're creating something and no one sees the value in it but you. Sometimes you do have to show them. So you may have to sell outside of your local market. And you know what's going to happen when you come back home? A different value.
I could attest to that.
So can I.
I don't know if the Jamaicans in the audience would agree with me, but I've heard the story that initially when Bob Marley started, he actually was more loved outside of Jamaica. Only when he made it in England and other places, then he became big back home. So sometimes you're not honored in your own home until somebody else honors you. And that, we kind of like other people to honor our superstars and our heroes rather than honor them first ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody else or somebody in the mic? Go ahead, Hakeem.
Greetings. So being present in a third world country, right here in Grenada, in the beautiful Grenada, where our financial institutions are not globally recognized. Yes, no, with the mission of trying to go from local to global. What advice do you have for the ghetto youth trying to strive as a creative, trying to tap into that global market when we cannot access funds throughout the global market? I'm a musician. I stream music, Spotify, all over the world, Mexico, everywhere. Yes, I have the internet platforms now that allows me to distribute all over the world. But my money is being piled up in a bank account that I cannot touch because it is not recognized by any Grenadian market. Now, remember, I am speaking as a layman. Assume I am the least educated person. Assume I have no connections whatsoever. What advice do you have as a solution?
I face the same challenge. I'm a singer. I sell music. I also sell merch online. I think it just takes a little bit of research. We do have the disadvantage that we, in Grenada, and we don't have a lot of, we only have one international bank left. But there are platforms online that do transfer your funds to your local banks. You want the example? You want to talk to me afterwards? Stripe. Stripe, Eventbrite. But we'll talk afterwards. Hakeem. What are you selling? Oh, it depends on what you're selling. For me, Sabrina Francis, I use Stripe.
So do you have, is the funds overseas and you can't get it to Grenada? I'm trying to understand that.
Yes, the issue is that sometimes when you do business online, the international businesses don't accept your Grenadian bank account information.
So I mean, so
they can't access the money.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys have PayPal?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, PayPal.
Well, that, I mean...
Talking to Mike, take the mic.
they have an intermediary bank.
Yeah, because PayPal does that everywhere. So.
It seems like it doesn't work for everybody.
Hervin.
It's on. PayPal does not allow you to link. I am.
No, you are.
PayPal, you can, because of the U.S. tax laws and etc., you cannot link a non-U.S. bank account to receive funds through PayPal. You can pay out your wazoo through PayPal all you want, but you cannot receive money. The money can be paid to you, but it will just sit there. You cannot.
It can't be transferred from PayPal to a local bank.
It must be a U.S. bank account.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to disagree, but I literally receive money using my.
Where's your business registered?
Grenada. Yeah.
Okay,
All right,
so
if you
sorry, I can't hear.
All right.
Okay.
if you actually do that, Sabrina, can you create an email or something to after this to like share the information? Because I've tried PO and I've tried
My email is
PayPal everywhere.
info@sabrinafrancis.com, because this seemed like a really hot topic.
Yeah, it is.
So please, we could talk about it. info@sabrinafrancis.com.
Doc, go ahead.
If you all don't mind, I would suggest we not pursue this topic and that the organizers will find a private way of sharing that information with who wants it, right? Because some of this is being live streamed and everything, and the reality is that there are a lot of impediments that are put our way for doing financial services and transactions, and some of them make no sense. These are battles the central bank is fighting, we are fighting it at the OECS. So if Sabrina has found a way that works for her, then let that be her secret with sharing with us, right? So for a while, so as long as that window is open, we make use of it.
Thank you. Okay, well,
actually, I just want to mention one thing that comes to mind,
Go
because
ahead.
you're talking from local to global, right? So in Canada, there's a...
Let's just hear Eddie a while.
So in Canada, the government of Canada came up with an initiative. If you notice that...
Hold on, one second. Just hold those conversations for a while. I know we have a hot topic going on there, but one last comment from the panelists. Go ahead, Eddie.
The government in Canada, they've come up with, which is called the CRTC, which governs the airwaves in Canada. If you notice that every major artist now is a Canadian artist. Drake, The Weeknd, right? And there's a reason for that. You know what? The government of Canada says every radio station has to play 33 1/3% Canadian content. So what happens? All the major record companies signing all the artists because they know they're going to get played in Canada, right? I mean, if from jazz, if you think of Michael Bublé, he's the biggest selling jazz artist. If you think of Diana Krall, she's the biggest selling, all Canadians. And it's because of a government initiative. And there was no money put into it. It's just a mandate that says, listen, you got to pay 33 1/3% Canadian content. And over the years, you see what happened.
Yes.
So, and this is another thing, Sabrina, that, and Alison talked about this as well, where is collaborating. So, if you collaborate with a Canadian artist, it means that you all of a sudden you apt to have Canadian content, which now will get you on the radio in Canada, which now will bleed over to the U.S. So these are things that can happen, you know. So sometimes you look locally, but you also have to look internationally at the things that are put in place to help artists, and you can ride on that, on that back.
Make the system work for you.
Yes.
But I really hope as well that the people listening who, you know, whoever's in control of the creative industries now, because we have this thing going on, could listen and hear that this is a huge problem, that we can't access our funds, and it's hard to do business internationally. So make note of that, because I think our last semi-international bank is about to leave Grenada, and now we'll only be left with.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, panelists. But Mr. Killer, he wants to say something. We'll entertain you. Go ahead, quickly. Mike, Killer.
Calvin.
Why are you doing me that? Okay, I just wanted to say this quick because I spoke earlier, but I just wanted to say this to Sabrina specifically. You are one of my favorite artists in the world, in the whole world. I just want you to know that. And as you speak earlier on about making the small steps, even if we make small steps, as you say, from local to global, because I became an international artist by also taking the small step, but one day waking up and say to myself, let me start channeling after I learn how to channel. The universe reads what you dream. So even though we take small steps, you don't want your target to be short. You want your target to be big. So don't forget to keep dreaming big at the same time. When you go to sleep at night, remember in your mind that you are bigger than Beyonce. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, I just wanna leave that because the universe do read where our mind is at. I wake up one day, I was fed up with just doing just the soca monarch and stuff like that, and I started to think a certain way. In the same year, I had my first international hit that became the most viewed soca song in history at the time, which was Roly Poly. And I wasn't saying to myself, I'm the best. It's only when I reach on the international stage, which you think, where you said a while ago, oh, I feel like I am not ready, I'm just a baby. But you would be surprised. Nothing is impossible when you think about it in a certain way. When I got to that stage and I realized I was the baddest thing. Blessed love, and I love your music. Thank you so much.
Alison? Yeah, I was just saying, it would be remiss of me as a trade expert not to mention the fact that we have to know the trade agreements that we are part of. We are part of the OECS, we are part of CARICOM Single Market and Economy. We have an economic partnership agreement with the EU. We are also members of the WTO, and there are rules by which we have to follow. So as you talk about local to global and you understand your export readiness, you must know what your rules of origin requirements. So the fashion designer, where you get your input, the craft persons, where you get your input to meet the rules of origin requirements so that you can get your products duty-free, quota-free into the European market, which makes your product obviously then more competitive. So these are things you have to think about when you talk about price and competitiveness. So I know we don't have time, but it's something that you need to take into consideration where you have these agreements, how you can take advantage of these agreements, which are opportunities for you. Those in the film where we could do co-production, which Eddie spoke of, where you partner with another artist in these member states, which then allows your product and service to be European, to be Canadian, and therefore you get the benefits, etc. So I want us to also think about that, the agreements that we are party to as Grenadians, as a persons listening out there, as a region, that we can take advantage of to allow us to get into the European market, etc., at a more competitive advantage than other countries who are not party to these agreements.
Thank you, Alison.
Alison needs to be on everybody's team.
Pardon?
I said you need to be on everybody's team.
I need to. Yeah, I'm available.
Let me just say thanks to all the panelists, Alison Francis, Eddie Berlin, Dee Noel, and of course, Sabrina Francis. Give yourselves a wonderful applause. You've been a wonderful audience. Thanks for staying with us. See you tomorrow. And don't forget, tomorrow we have an exhibit. All our arts and crafts and artisans will be exhibiting their works from 2 o'clock. And then we have a mini concert. Sabrina gonna be singing one song, but we have Akeem, we have Andrew Hitz Phillips, we have, my God, I can't remember all of them, but we have a lot of artists gonna pass through, and so the music will start at 4. So it's free. Invite your friends. Everything is free. So see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. And also, our final presentation tomorrow is a panel discussion, One Creative Caribbean, featuring our very own Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, Didicus Jules, Alison Francis, and our CAF representative. Before you guys leave, I have 2 announcements. PAS 3, where's that? Olia, hold on. PAS 381, you need to move your vehicle. And now, let me say it now. And now the My Phone will be given out. I'd like to invite Digicel Business to make that dip. And the lucky winner, Miss Neela Etienne, is already standing on stage to receive her phone. All right, Miss Digicel. Miss Digicel, come on down. Mr. Digicel, come on down. Who's going to be the lucky winner of the iPhone 14 Max Pro? Compliments Digicel Business. Why am I speaking in this? Mr. Romain, I'd like to come and help dip Mr. Joe. Oh, yeah, Allison could do it. Shake. Call my name. I bought the case already. It's me. The winner, if you are here.
He is.
If this person is not here, that phone going home with me. All you are happy for the person. The winner of the iPhone 14 Max Pro is Mr. Akeem Abraham. And for those of you who want to book Akeem, he's a musician, and he can give you your information. Akeem, congratulations, you're the winner of a new iPhone Max Pro 14.
What did you tell people? And I told y'all, right? Did I not tell y'all? Y'all wasn't the one taking the information, huh? Oh, anyways, you want to first story? A few days ago, I drove over my iPhone. So thank you very much in the name of the Most High.
The Spirit was with you.
Congratulations, Akeem. You're the winner of the iPhone 14 Max Pro. Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. We ended on a high. See you tomorrow, 9 o'clock sharp, for our first two presenters telling their story about how they got through the industry. Thank you.
Because I didn't want to take your